My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence, that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C., and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state, and it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state.
That's light activity while demons are pacing.
on foot and on bike, and also hitting this bench that I'm on right here. As if this is harassment. It's to monitor me though. That's impossible light that you see. And then the demons cross path. Those are demons. This is the Nephilim. And not only that, the flashing of light you see while the vehicle is much farther down the street, that's not reflecting off of this storefront over here. These are demons. And these are the homosexuals that are monitoring my vagina in the bathroom while they're stalking right now. With the city of Ontario, those are demons driving a dumpster truck. Okay, they are far down the street, and you're looking at what is the maintenance of impossible light activity at this storefront next to me, while demons are engaged in what is sensational activity while you hit the bench as you're driving by, not driving by, but as you're walking by or skating by, like this demon does, engaging in what is monitoring. That's sensational activity while you're monitoring. Impossible light activity while you're driving a vehicle, that's impossible light activity while you're monitoring. Engaging in what is sensational activity is what the demons inside of the library do all day long. They sit around stalking while I'm on the computers. They sit around engaging in surveillance, hitting and beating on the desk all day long, sitting around like they're not engaging it, like they're not doing that. These are psychopaths. That's the impossible light activity. And those are the demons that are crossing path, okay? The dynamic light is speaking to what is impossible to occur. This is the Nephilim. Those are demons. This is light activity that they're engaged in. This is monitoring. This is surveillance. It's public corruption as you prosecute the government for it. These are sex offenders keeping me under surveillance, obsessed with me, stalking me 24 hours a day. This is P.O.C. That's impossible light activity as the reflection of the light. This is the ongoing flashing of light was occurring on the storefront. But yet the entity is maintaining presence far down the street. That's impossible light activity. You're just paying attention to the details while demons are engaged in surveillance. The pedestrians are demons. The drivers are demons. Everybody inside of the building are demons. This is P.O.C. It's 6:37 a.m. now. All right, the entity engaging in surveillance, stopping on the side of the road, which is stalking with light, while the entity is engaged in what you also know as molestation with impossible light, while the entity is stalking by planes. 8YLM194, that's a male. Starbucks is engaged in surveillance. They're engaged in criminal monitoring with the entity that is stalking by commercial planes flying over the storefronts where I'm located. 531 North Euclid Avenue, 537 North Euclid Avenue, where no planes are hovering, taking off from the airport. No plane activity is going to create any disturbance, and no planes are going to be hovering as I'm documenting while the entity is stalking me using the airport that's going to be shut down. The people of the state are stalking on the roads and the highways, and the people of the state are stalking as pedestrians. This is maintaining ongoing psychopathic level stalking by a population. This is the Nephilim. License 8KZE551. And the entities engaging in what is stalking by the city of Ontario. The video that you just listened to is video speaking to the fact that they are all stalking. That's why the impossible light activity is present. That's why it's occurring in the first place. This is monitoring. Amplified audible activity while demons are stalking. License plate. And these are the demons that engage in assault and battery with a deadly weapon. They're not ignorant about you. License 8MJB638, engaging in an assault and battery with an intent to threaten me. And the entity that engages in threatening upon gang stalking goes to federal prison. And that's exactly where that demon that I documented is going. 9HQH348 is gang stalking me and committed assault with a deadly weapon as an entity last night. And that same entity is stalking right now and engaging in surveillance on the side of the street across from Starbucks. That demon that you'll see, I took a picture of it. They're stalking in the path. They're doing so. This is the government that's engaging in surveillance, conspicuous surveillance and stalking, no warrant or probable cause on the roads and the highways. And they do so by, first of all, parking at going to the gas station, getting out and getting gas. And it's a means of surveillance and the elements of monitoring. They do so by just getting out their vehicle and going into Starbucks and buying coffee. And they do so without a warrant or probable cause. And this is the public corruption. The entity is doing so while the airport is monitoring you, while the police department, the fire department are monitoring you, and they're doing so pursuant to license 7PFK284, molesting you with impossible light. The sex offenders that are engaging in the perpetual sex offense, the molestation via impossible light, the sex offense committed by all of them that are engaging in what is assault and battery with a deadly weapon, where you're not ignorant, where you're stalking me with impossible light, you're going to prison. Okay, you're engaging in that, and then at the same time, you would want to state that, oh, you did not know, and that was an accident, and that it's even the target individual's fault for being in the street, and you're going to federal prison for gang stalking. Okay, the entity is surrounding at what is F Street in Euclid. I documented the immigrants gang stalking at that venue with the Ontario Police Department, where they're engaging in criminal monitoring with the demon stalking in the path at the venue off of F Street. The entity is engaging what is surrounding with light activity. And this is the entity of demons. I'm going to take a picture where they're located at. All right. That's the immigrants are gang stalking over there as well. License 8KVF251. Stalking with light altogether. The entity is engaging in the pattern of conduct as one entity. They are doing so as one entity that are demon possessed and that are a violent and sexually perverted entity. License 6UMG 602 8119382. License plate 7LWE 602. I believe substantially similar, but I can't really see the rest of that one, so you don't have to carry that one. It's 6:51 a.m. and it's Saturday, September 27, 2025. This is stalking with the Ontario International Airport that is covering up the sky space, and the plane activity is what is heard with regard to monitoring. Flying in close proximity. License 9MHV520. Those are the demons of Starbucks. That's one of the demons that are going to be prosecuted. License 8TBX414. Prosecuted for, that's either Brian, one of those demons that are engaged in kidnapping, who are going to federal prison. That's what I mean. This entity is being prosecuted, but I mean prosecuted for kidnapping, and they're gang stalking on the roads and the highways as well. It's currently 6:52 a.m. So the entity that's engaged in what is walking by me, is engaging in what is stalking. The entity is engaging in stalking on behalf of the government that's maintaining surveillance and inhumane means of surveillance, which are as their demons engaging in monitoring. This is the stalking with light, stalking with amplified noise, stalking with an unheard of means such as with planes and helicopters. License 6ZUB 633. License plate 62228P3. License 9MDB622, I believe. I can't really see that license plate though. All right, engaging in surveillance includes CHEVRON, stalking with impossible light, 506 North Euclid Avenue, where the Ontario Police are stalking by helicopter, and they're also engaged in the sex offense, as I documented. They engaged in assault and battery with a deadly weapon as an entity. CHEVRON engaging. I'm going to prosecute for that. I'm documenting terrorism by stalking by the police, terrorism, criminal summoning with the Ontario Fire Department, terrorism, stalking with the Ontario National Airport, the sex offense, the perpetual sex offense, assault and battery as an entity, molesting with impossible light while CHEVRON is engaging in surveillance, federal stalking, the conspiracy to commit murder, while its employees, its establishment, and the gang stalking demons are monitoring at CHEVRON, and CHEVRON is in relevant position. 9CVN 290. This is a method of stalking with light. Okay, this is P.O.C. It's facilitation. License plate 7GWA726, stalking with light. CBG0699, that's Texas. 7HQP727. 54638E2. License 7FRX913, 8DTT149, 7L15807, and license AJ19702, license 8K81183, and gang stalking at Starbucks, going by I've been inside of Starbucks and I fully explored and documented the RICO case against Starbucks. You're gang stalking outside of Starbucks, you're gang stalking inside of Starbucks, you're gang stalking working at Starbucks, you're gang stalking purchasing from Starbucks. That's the entity that's engaged in that, and Starbucks is sharing in the assault and battery as an entity. Starbucks is sharing in the assault with a deadly weapon. Starbucks is sharing in what is terrorism with the Ontario Police, stalking by helicopter. Starbucks is sharing in the ongoing terrorism by the Ontario International Airport, and the Ontario Fire Department engaged in criminal summoning. Starbucks is engaged in kidnapping on July 4, 2025. This is the entity that's going to be prosecuted as it is acting as one. License 9NRJ893. License plate 8UB8, I can't really see that one. TWLR TWK. VITCO is gang stalking. VITCO company, that's a trucking company. Well, it's a foods company, and they use large trucks. They're gang stalking, and they're sharing in the sex offense. 9UGJ186, and they're engaged in federal stalking. Inherently, the use of trucks is that which is engaged in interstate commerce, and they're engaged in federal stalking on the roads and the highways, crossing state lines with the intent to engage in surveillance with the state. That's the prosecution. License 60IT768, I believe, or 60IT. License plate 9DEN758, engaging in surveillance, just like the demons are surrounding the perimeter. This demon's license plate is 8YER359. Omnitrans is engaged in surveillance. The entire Route 83, ceaseless engagement in the P.O.C. And you know that because the fake sun remains over me, and it doesn't remain in the window of any Omnitrans bus. And they also engage in molestation with impossible light. They stop at the stops, maintaining light activity, not a bus route. And it is the entity that's engaging in that pattern of conduct with the City of Ontario, which, again, Alan D. Wapner, who's being removed from position, is engaging in with regard to the public corruption. All right, license plate 1613627, bus 1262. As you can hear them engaging in what is activity creation. They're not stopping for me as though they're ignorant as to whether I'm getting on the bus. They're engaging in activity creation. All right, that's Omnitrans. That's a gang stalker, very much engaged in targeting me. The entity stalking me by helicopter on those buses. The entity stalking me with the fake sun on those buses. The entity stalking with light. These demons that are nowhere near the bucket, crab, and crawfish. This is a demon. While they're engaged in license 09979E4, it's always graffiti. This is unfortunate. This is a little mom and pop company that's going to be prosecuted. These are demons, and they're immigrant. If their employees or immigrants are going to be deported. Stalking with impossible light, meaning, this is what I documented on video. The entity maintains a method of light activity, meaning, for example, even the traffic lights create light activity. And on the storefronts, the windows of the stores, you're looking at what are methods of light activity creation, just like I show you the fake sun, and then I'll show you the reflection of the fake sun on the window, the sun that doesn't hover low to the ground at the same height that I'm at, or even to the second floor window, for example. The entity is engaging what is crossing path with the City of Ontario vehicle that has already gone beyond East Street, for example, and you're still looking at the same light activity reflecting. That's demonic. It's impossible. 7K78411. These are what the demons are engaging in when you're paying attention to the illusions that they present around you. When you're not paying attention to that level of detail. The vehicle is already gone, and it's not going to be reflecting off of the vehicle, off of the windows of the building next to me, while you have already proceeded far down the street. That's not a reflection of those vehicles. It's demonic. It's a method of light activity. License, and that's, again, the City of Ontario demons, and that's graffiti patrol demons. 9DSP299 is also a demon, and everything that they're doing with iterations of light is demonic. And graffiti patrol coatings is engaged in terrorism with the City of Ontario, and being contracted with the City of Ontario is not going to help them in court. You're going to prosecute that business, and then you're going to prosecute the third parties that are using that business as a means of targeting. It's the identification of It's identification of two defendants, civilly and criminally. And not only that, the City of Ontario is going to be prosecuted already. So the City of Ontario isn't helping or saving anybody. Priority Landscape Services, LLC, graffiti patrol coatings, they're not going to be under some umbrella of suing the City of Ontario. That's not how this is going to, it's criminal activity. You are going to be prosecuted for your criminal conduct, including your criminal conduct as a company. And any contract with the city is nothing other than an admission to sharing in that pattern of conduct with the government. License 7MQV381, and graffiti protective coatings acting with impunity. These demons engage in what is psychopathic behavior, using that business, which they don't have any constitutional protection, and any gang stalking immigrants that are employed by graffiti protective coatings are hereby being exposed because you're going to be deported. That corrupt business is engaging in terrorism, which I should be aware of because they're employing terrorists while they're engaged in terrorism under the guise of the business of that company, and doing so with the City of Ontario. Engaging in terrorism, also hiring and permitting terrorism and engaging in terrorism with gang stalking immigrants. License plate 8UUY895, and it's the same with the City of Ontario Police Department. They're engaged, as I captured them engaging in terrorism by helicopter. Guess who's getting deported? The terrorists that reside in the City of Ontario. And any immigrants that work with license 8SXC
567, for example, being an immigrant, gang stalk with Ontario police is immediate whistleblowing upon what are the deportation of terrorists that are immigrants. 8NFL 807, and that's the whole city of Ontario. And it's speaking to the immigrants that are, for example, a part of that agency that's being disbanded. You're being deported. Just so this is terrorism. It's a basis of deportation. That's what's going to happen. It is currently 7 a.m. As you are aware, there's very likely immigrants that are engaging in terrorism at the Ontario International Airport, and it is 11503J2, and it is a wonderful thing that terrorists are being deported. Enemies of the United States, who are the domestic terrorists in the state of California, are being deported out of this country, and they work for the Ontario International Airport, the Ontario Fire Department, the Ontario Police Department, the City of Ontario. They're being deported. Residents of the City of Ontario, they're being deported. License plate 4ZXH367. 08. I can't really see that one. This is a P.O.C. The entity is maintaining impossible light activity. And how do they do that during the day when they're not coming up the fake sun? The fake sun is a means of impossible light activity. It's not the sun. Neither is it sunlight that they're driving in, walking in, making any noise in, stalking in planes with, following me around in police vehicles. None of that is the sun, and neither is it sunlight. The entire entity is demon-possessed. This is the Nephilim, and they're engaged in what I have referred to as impossible light activity while they are stalking me and keeping a fake sun. And when you're doing that, you're not engaging in any act of negligence or an accident with regard to assault with a deadly weapon that is intentionally inflicted upon an American citizen where you are of this condition engaging in what is stalking. And that's exactly what's going to happen when you're engaged in criminal surveillance, period, by the government. The government's going to be prosecuted for any and every harm that you suffer in the first place while the entity is maintaining relevant positioning, stalking you. All right, but like I stated, the entity is going to be in court facing the evidence of stalking with impossible light and then claiming, which no one is going to hear. I'm going to let you know how that goes, how that's going to go beforehand. No one is going to hear any evidence about you were ignorant, you didn't know because you didn't see. These are demons. And the fact that they're demons is already proven, amazingly, it's already proven through evidence, and it's already proven through the environment, and it's also already proven through the criminal pattern of conduct. So when you're engaging in a collateral harm, such as assault with a deadly weapon, your prosecution is already secure and you're going to prison. Just so that you know, you're going to federal prison as a terrorist and seeking to engage in what is an unlawful threat, threat of harm, while you are a psychopath stalking with light. It doesn't help you if you don't know how to watch your mouth and shut up while you're already gang stalking. It doesn't help you while you engage in an act of violence, which I document. You're going to federal prison. It's as simple as that. It is currently 7:02 a.m. and the entity that's engaging in soliciting this violence, Jason Fields, he's going to prison. This is the federal government's doing, and the federal government not ever conducting an investigation nor ever having any authority under the law, and they're going to federal prison. That includes Jason Fields and anyone else that he's cooperating with. That's just the only puppet of Satan whose name I know at this point, and that's all I need to know. Because my case, my public investigation is evidence of what is an ongoing unlawful conduct by the federal government, permitting the state to engage in torture in furtherance of murder to cover up their criminal activity. And you're going to federal prison for that. AJ 197OS, it's an act of terrorism. It's not an act that's going to be covered up by a lawsuit. There's no negotiation for how much money do you want. You're going to federal prison. This is a attempted murder, essentially, through gang stalking. Okay, and the gang stalking conduct in and of itself is that which is committed in furtherance of murder. Okay, you're engaging in psychological torture to psychologically murder someone, if you will, to psychologically cause them to have a breakdown so that you can set them up. This is why the entity is lying about my character, making up criminal activity that I never committed and would never engage in. This is why they're engaging in trying to set me up for crimes. This is all relevant to what is a very serious crime. This is not going to be handled by some civil case. You're going to federal prison. It's terrorism. And that includes demons of the federal agencies such as Jason Isaac Fields, who's going to federal prison. License 9DGN321. 7K00335. These are a bunch of demons stalking on the roads and the highways with the airport that's flying over this storefront. This is surveillance, and these are the demons that engage in stalking with the possible light. Monitoring my vagina in the bathroom. 9PBE160, license 67134C2. P.O.C. And that's exactly what they're doing when I'm inside a Starbucks. That's what they're doing when they're stalking with impossible light inside a Starbucks. That's what they're doing when they're opening and closing the door inside a Starbucks, which is how you know the sex offense that they're committing, and that no person, no demon that's engaging in that is engaged in what is ignorance about your presence. 9 BEY 806. When you're targeting me with the fake sun, that directly rebuts what is your implausible claim in a courtroom that you were ignorant and that you accidentally sped in front of me, about to hit me with the vehicle. That's a malicious act by a murderer. That's gang stalking, and you're going to federal prison. And you can thank the gang stalking demons of the Ontario Police who are engaging in surveillance at the same exact location, which is speaking to what is relevant to what you're committing at the same venue in the same city amongst the same pattern of conduct. Where I'm documenting the fake sun is where you're engaged in what is assault with a deadly weapon, not an act of negligence or an accident. Where I'm documenting the entity stalking me with impossible light, where I'm documenting the entity that is stalking under a fake sun rising and setting at this same location, you're engaged in what is a documented act of violence as a terrorist who is also known to be a demon, engaged in what is assault with a deadly weapon. And the businesses gang stalking are sharing in that violence. I'm going to prosecute civilly and criminally. You're going to drain the pockets. The gang stalking employee at ARCO is monitoring with the Ontario Police Department. The entities engaged in what is assault with a deadly weapon, not an accident. They're not ignorant about your presence. They're monitoring you when you don't even know that you're being monitored, and they're monitoring when they're not even sharing a space with you. This is the Nephilim. They're demons. And you're going to prosecute based on the malice of what the demons are committing, and they don't have car accidents. They engage in insurance fraud. They absolutely undergo what are acts of collisions in order to collect money, collisions in order to engage in murdering people and calling it a car accident. That's what the Nephilim do. Sex offender 9SBU 858 and license 57272X1. Stalking with light by being in relevant position. Psychopathic gas stall number 7 of Chevron. Gang stalking. Okay, this is P.O.C. License plate coming in as I enter the parking lot. License 8SVZ986. P.O.C. All right, the same demon that's gang stalking last night at the Chevron is maintaining a different vehicle. He was driving a van last night, and you have a black BMW license 9SBU 858 parked on the side of the Chevron this morning, and he's monitoring with the demons that are maintaining activity creation, monitoring with Chevron. And this is 7:07 a.m., so I just want to make sure. Yeah, just want to make sure. P.O.C. They're all on surveillance cameras, and I'm going to use all of technology to prosecute the entity. This is P.O.C. It's just stalking inside of the market. And those are the acts of demons. And that's also where you're going to prosecute the business that's engaging in what is gang stalking through the maintenance of that business. P.O.C. It is 7:07 a.m.
All right, this is pacing in and out of the store, high traffic, it's based on monitoring, pacing in and out, and this is Chevron monitoring. As I walk out of Chevron, license 7M22709, as I walk in and out of Chevron, the entity stalking by helicopter, the entity stalking by commercial plane, the entity stalking, maintaining the fake sun, both in the morning and in the evening as though the sun is rising and setting at Chevron, the same P.O.C. And this is gang stalking underway inside of the vineyard. And this is the Nephilim that engage in that. These are demons. All right, that's gonna be it. Oh no, I think it's fine. Alright, that's audible activity. The door chime and light activity. This is monitor. Okay, and that same precision that they have with impossible light activity is what is existing with regard to the light, to the audible activity. That's the entity stalking by planes, and that's a demon walking in. Number 2, gang stalking is a license plate at number 2, 09212R3 with the Ontario International Airport. License plate EF98N49. That's a paper plate on a Honda. The entity is engaging in surveillance with Chevron, who is engaging in terrorism, okay? The entity stalking, there are no planes that's going to be heard or seen, like I've captured in podcast and on video, including under the sunset. For the 6:47 p.m. fake sun, that's the prosecution and the removal of the airport, okay? The license 57272X1, EF984N9, EF98N49, 09212R3, and 9SBU858 are engaging in gang stalking as the city of Ontario. And so is the business Chevron, and this is where they committed assault with a deadly weapon, which is no accident where the entity is monitoring you. Okay, this is, and again, the entity's criminal conduct is that's what the entity was doing with the assault and battery that occurred in the middle of the street last night, 9EEY072, doing so while there are also no published flights from the airport. License 9NIX895, license 7HWX195, that's a gang stalking employee at ARCO, monitoring with the ARCO, because this is where the entity is flying over by planes, license plate 66312B3, and license B41B84. Now, they were flying over the storefront where I was located at the 537 Euclid Avenue. Now they're flying over the parking lot where the downtown Ontario luxury apartment, where the ARCO gas station is. That's the pattern of conduct of stalking. All right, again, license 8SVZ986 is engaging in stalking by going to the Chevron where I'm located, which is what the government is doing, stalking by commercial planes where I'm located. And this is where these demons that are engaging in stalking committed assault and battery with a deadly weapon. Okay, P.O.C. License plate. And this is a stalking that's going on in the bathroom. 09212R3, who you hear going into the ARCO. You're talking about deportation. You're going to deport gang stalking immigrants, 8 NPJ 747, engaging in surveillance, another sex offender, license plate 9NIX895, stopping on the side of the road, maintaining surveillance. And then I'm going to the gas station because in their mind, this is what they think is something that's relevant to what is a blatant presence in the path. And you're in the path because, I'm going to the ARCO gas station over here and I'm stopping on the side of the road because I'm deciding on whatever it is that a demon is telling themselves it's criminal presence in the path while the entity is engaging in targeting by the police, targeting by the airport. Okay, that is engaging in what is stalking. As I progress south on Euclid Avenue, so does that plane activity, and is doing so outside of any takeoffs or arrivals, meaning the entity is targeting by presence of
the commercial planes, and they do so with regard to monitoring my every move, which is what the demon possessed are doing when they commit assault and battery, not an act of negligence, speeding down the street and not stopping. That's intentional conduct by the government, by the way. And you're going to prosecute that third party, 8NY. I have that demon's license plate. That you're going to prosecute that third party for what is criminal conduct committed as an entity that is also hostile, because I'm referring to them as what they are. They're demons that sit around masturbating in the mother's basement to child porn. Okay, that's what's gang stalking means. Psychopaths, demons, pedophiles, serial killers of all races, and the immigrants are going to be deported. That's an easy resolution there. 9EEY072, the same population. 5HQT981. All right, and that makes up the Ontario Police Department as well. They engage in pedophilia, they have sex with children, and they also masturbate to child porn. This is the character of those that are the Nephilim. This is the character of those that are engaging in the violence of gang stalking. This is the character of and the substance that makes up these corrupt companies that are engaging in gang stalking, just so that you know. And many of those that are immigrants are going to be deported from the United States. This is terrorism that I'm reporting in real time, and the entity is going to be deported. The federal government, Mr. Trump, I.I.S, has what is the ability to deport every single immigrant household, immigrant resident from the state, let alone what is the city of Ontario, because the state of California is engaging in what is gang violence. This is terrorism. It's domestic terrorism. And this is the entity that's engaging in it, providing evidence against itself, and no one is crying for any gang stalking demon that's conspiring murder. License plate 26923N3. They are not individuals. This is the government acting through a whole population, and that population is going to be shredded apart, meaning the immigrants are getting deported. You don't have an individual right as a gang stalking terrorist, and you're going to be prosecuted based on your status because of the criminal conduct of the government. And I told you before, that's exactly what's going to happen. And the entity that's complaining about you don't like how I.I.S is deporting people, they're deporting immigrants in California. However you get them out of here, get them out of here. License plate. Gang stalking. License 7UKP 919. All right, when you have the presence of engineer light, a fake sun, surveillance by the government, there's no accident there. And the entity provided that evidence in the same exact video. You don't have any argument for engaging in what is an assault and battery, an assault with a deadly weapon versus some accident, or even trying to blame the targeted individual. And you can't blame the target individual for speeding around the corner and not stopping with regard to making that stop. The entity is engaging in what is not merely negligent. However, you're understanding what is the entity that engages in acts of violence all the time and then reports it on the news as some sort of to be resolved, to be solved act of violence or crime, or the demise of an American citizen that it is targeting, that it engages in inflicting harm together. And then this little gang stalking demon goes home, or even stays around and waits for the gang stalking police and fire department and ambulance while they make a report claiming what are the facts that they know. That's how they maintain a paper trail, and that targeted individual is the one that's suffering the harm, and they're all targeting together. That's how the city of Ontario intends to engage in what is harm. The entity is going to be prosecuted for what is the assault with a deadly weapon committed by the state last night. All right, again, and that demon's license plate, while I'm showing you the criminal pattern of conduct that she was engaging in, knowing exactly who I am and where I'm located, gang stalking and targeting with the city of Ontario, that demon's license plate again, it is, sorry. ZNY193. She's gang stalking with the city of Ontario on video in the specific environment, not ignorant about my presence, nor reasonably ignorant about my presence in the specific environment where surveillance is proven to be underway. And this is the ability to prove and remove what are irrelevant doctrines, like something is tortious versus something is criminal, versus something that is malicious, getting to what is defamation when you're engaged in surveillance. Okay, that's getting to a malicious act. Not only is it false, they know that it's false. That's malicious. This is the entity that's engaging in that as a means of, again, relying on your ignorance about surveillance, and the Ontario police are going to prison. That's what I'm getting to. They're engaging in many documented acts of criminal defamation, and they're going to prison. It's criminal defamation because they're engaged in criminal surveillance for the purpose of kidnapping and murder, and they specifically engaged in documented acts of criminal defamation with Tracy Banks. For example, the kidnapping on May 29, 2025, when they not only know that no violence occurred in her apartment, and that they also know that there's no mental illness. They're engaging in what is ongoing defamation while they're monitoring. With regard to what is your ignorance about that, 6 UWH 085, in order to that they can contend that they're relying on what Tracy Banks told them, and that's a lie, because Tracy Banks and the Ontario Police are monitoring together. That's why they're stalking me by helicopter last night. 8G48822, license 8WYA671. 9NIX895, and this is ARCO that's stalking with its customers, and the demons of the Ontario International Airport are stalking with ARCO that share in violence, that share in sexual violence. The entity that's engaged in what is sexual assault and battery, they're doing so with ARCO. ARCO is going to be prosecuted as the sex offender that it is, ceaselessly engaging in that, including while the fake son is over me, and ARCO is monitoring in relevant position. That's how an establishment is gang stalking you, by the way, because the fake son follows you to that venue. You're going to be prosecuted. And ARCO is headquartered in Los Angeles. It's not even a real environment. That fake environment is targeting, is identifying the fact that you're being targeted, and that establishment that includes ARCO at 434 North Euclid Avenue is going to be prosecuted for the perpetual sex offense. 8TMP 186 for ongoing terrorism by its employees, by its patrons, by the government that is using ARCO as a means of the criminal pattern of conduct, because you're not supposed to know that surveillance is underway and that ARCO is supposed to be a private property, a private business, and they're none of the above at all. And that's getting to the malice, the entity that's engaging in what is assault and battery at the facilitating venue of ARCO. ARCO is going to be prosecuted for that. This is the entity that acts as one, speaks as one, and commits criminal activity as one. And you're going to prosecute the deeper pockets like ARCO, but you're also going to prosecute the little brokies, 8ZNY 193, because they're going to prison for their acts of violence, and you're going to drain the pockets. Okay? And whatever money that they don't have, they're going to lose that, in addition to losing their freedom. And there's no government that's going to, oh, well, we'll absorb. You're not absorbing anything. It's criminal activity. You're not absorbing anything. With regard to civil prosecution, this is a criminal and a civil prosecution. You're not absorbing anything. That's not how it's going to work. And you're going to prosecute the brokies. You're going to prosecute what are the demons that are representing corrupt corporations that are engaging in that pattern of conduct. And brokies like graffiti, protective coatings as well. You're not absorbing anything. You can't absorb their criminal activity, and you will not absorb their criminal activity. It is impossible. This is how you're going to be prosecuted. Both robbers that commit that robbery together, the co-conspirators, are both going to be individually prosecuted as the group that engaged in and conspired to commit that act of violence. And any lives taken, any death that occurred is reasonably foreseeable to transpire upon engaging and embarking in a inherently violent crime like a robbery, where you're needing to use weapons, you're needing to engage in what is force, you're going to reasonably engage in what is any sort of violence that's going to result in, reasonably to result in the loss of life, and you're going to federal prison for that. It's the crime in and of itself upon what is the loss of life, as I'm very generally going over how you're prosecuting any violent crime, and gang stalking is a violent crime committed by the government. And the entity engaging in any acts of violence, such as assault with a deadly weapon, okay, placing me in a reasonable apprehensive state of being hit by a demon that's gang stalking me, you're going to prison. You're going to federal prison, and the government's going to be prosecuted for that. That's the entity that's going to be prosecuted civilly and criminally. That includes ARCO, Chevron, Starbucks. That includes all those businesses that share in that. The entity's engaging in a massive sex offense, stalking you with light. License 6EJS972, that's another homosexual stalking. Any immigrants are being deported. License plate 5GUC027, license plate. These are demons pacing. 9JBR550. And as I'm documenting sexual assault and battery while the entity is molesting and an unlawful touching, guess what the Nephilim did? I took pictures of it, and it's letting you know about Mike LORENZ, who is a sex offender. He is a demon. He is a part of he is of the Nephilim. He's a demon. And so is that agency. This demon is engaged in, not specifically Mike Lorenz, it very well could have been Mike Lorenz, but I'm just speaking to Mike Lorenz represents the corrupt agency that's being disbanded. And the gang members of the Ontario Police, they're all going to federal prison as I have prosecuted them, gang stalking me, and my investigation is your prosecution, just so that you understand that. But as I documented you stalking me in the path, I document you, I encounter you threatening my life, engaging in what is that pattern of conduct with the intent to commit murder while you're bearing weapons and representing yourself as some police officer, and you're the Nephilim, engaging what is criminal surveillance and furtherance of murder to help these cowards like Jason Isaac Fields, who the federal government, you're going to federal prison. Satan, you're going to federal prison. And the entities engaging in what is molestation with impossible light last night, well, early in the morning, while I am documenting the sex offense committed, you'll see the timestamps. Because as I'm uploading screenshots, you'll look at the time in the screenshot. That's how you can recognize a chronological order between my pictures and screenshots. And that becomes relevant when I'm speaking to improving the time frame where the demons are engaging in something with specific knowledge. And so the demons of the Ontario Police are engaging in crossing a path, stopping at the driveway where I'm on the sidewalk, just targeting, in the same way that when they're flying over my head on the sidewalk with commercial planes, when they're flying in circles over me by helicopter, when they're keeping the fake sun over me from sunrise until sunset, all means of identifying targeting. The entity is engaging in what is stalking by a demon in an Ontario Police vehicle, and they're doing so by this demon engages in what is flashing light. I'm looking at my device, and this demon engages in prolonged flash. I'm on the sidewalk, I'm on public property. I'm standing there looking at my device. Why is it that you are flashing me with light? Understand what C. Hazelwood is doing when he is engaging in what is exercise of authority under the law, which you don't have as a department, you don't have as in a demon wearing a police uniform. And you're going to prison for that, what the entity engaged in. And so is any judge and any sheriff's department. License 8FTF 834 8CZA 791, stalking with the City of Ontario. So is anybody that is engaged in entertaining the criminal acts of the Ontario Police. You're going to federal prison. There's a list of judges that are already going. All right, they engaged in kidnapping with the Ontario Police Department, who commit kidnapping with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department in doing so. And they're not ignorantly doing that. That's why I documented the specific environment at the gang stalking establishment of what is the Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court, where Lisa Rogan is going to federal prison based on her kidnapping in 2020. She's one of the first demons, one of the first idiots that engaged in kidnapping, which I documented, and there's no statute of limitations. She's going to prison. She's going to federal prison upon criminal defamation, helping criminals like Jason Isaac Fields in the federal government. License plate 9NZY008 is gang stalking me in 2025 because Lisa Rogan engaged in kidnapping me and gang stalking me at the Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court in 2020. She's going to federal prison. And every harm that I suffer is precipitating from her original act of targeting me as the Nephilim that's wearing a robe sitting on the bench. This psychopath is being documented in every video, and I have thousands of them, over 7,000 videos, 7,600 to be exact. And the entities engaging in what is stalking me by the Ontario Police Department, Lisa Rogan's going to federal prison. You're just so that you know, Lisa Rogan, you're a cockroach. You're going to federal prison. Cockroaches are being exterminated. The domestic enemies of this country that include those sitting in courtrooms and facilitating terrorism by the demons like the Ontario Police Department, that's how the system of targeting is operated. Graffiti protective coatings is gang stalking. The City of Ontario, Alan D. WAPNER of the Ontario International Airport is gang stalking. Michael GERKEN of the Ontario Fire Department are gang stalking because cockroaches like Lisa Rogan are sitting around facilitating it. And that's the totality of that system. You're going to federal prison, hun. So I just want to be clear, understand where this is heading. And if for you, it is federal prison, and every other gang stalking judge that I already have their names, and it is beyond that. Okay, I document what I have access to. I document what I have knowledge of, and those that are in my presence, because every time I encountered you in the courtroom, I let you know exactly what's going to happen, and I told you to your face, you're going to federal prison. Okay, you're not engaging in kidnapping in the U.S. and avoiding it, and I'm documenting you on the roads and the highways. I'm documenting you every day regarding targeting that you were committing while I was in a courtroom where you had no jurisdiction pursuant to this criminal system. Okay, engaging in surveillance with a bunch of demons that are stalking on the every day and every night, which is what you're doing in a whole courtroom. You're pathetic. Not only that, the entities of the Ontario Police, last night, as I'm documenting the perpetual sex offense, with regard to molestation with impossible light, the entity is then driving up and is engaging what is molesting me with light while I'm standing on the sidewalk. I'm standing at ARCO using the Wi-Fi, the ARCO Wi-Fi, where the entity was stalking me by helicopter. That same agency is crossing path after I'm capturing screenshots of and documenting sexual violence by that company, sexual violence by the people of the state acting in concert with that company, sexual violence by the government in concert with that company, criminal summoning is with that company, molestation as an entity is occurring with that company, federal stalking under Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2 is occurring with and by that company, and the entity is doing so as I document that. Then a demon, this is the Nephilim, driving an Ontario Police Department vehicle, is then molesting my person by aiming light, the spotlights that they have on their vehicle, engaging in what is aiming light all over me, blinking, light is occurring all over my breast, all over the front of my person while I'm looking down at my phone, and I'm standing on the side, meaning the reason why I'm referring to where I'm standing is because why are you bothering me? What do you want? And I disregard the first blink of flashing of light on my person, and they continuously, this demon that's operating Ontario Police, and I don't need that vehicle, I don't have to chase down that license plate, that entire agency is going to be prosecuted for terrorism, and it's being disbanded. They're done with law enforcement. They sacrificed their career when they failed sacrificing me. They've sacrificed their career. Every video that I have of them targeting by helicopter, demons doing so, the Nephilim, as domestic terrorists of the United States, enemies of this country, and enemies of what this country stands for, while they're targeting me, and they're doing so pursuant to what is demonic conditions, okay? So this is the significance of what is under the law harassing me with regard to what the entity is also ordinarily treating under the facts of, for example, absent the information of the significance of monitoring molestation with light. It is the entity that's engaging in what, well, so what if the police, and it's not a so what actually, it wouldn't necessarily be a so what, because it's a means of harassment for the police to shining you with light on the sidewalk. But typically people are not going to complain about that. No, you don't like it, and you might be like, man, why are you shining light on me? And you'll let it go. You'll overlook it, and you need to not. It's a federal offense. They're monitoring you, and also that's a psychopath, and it's also something that is treating your person. They're unlawfully touching your body. It's a sex offense committed by an entity for a criminal purpose, and they're demons in doing so. I just want to be clear right now while I continue analysis, just real quick, sidebar. African-American female engaging in surveillance, stalking in the path as I arrive at the Ontario Town Square, doing so with graffiti protective companies who are following me from place to place. And this is as I'm honing in on one company, for example, the Ontario Police following from place to place, the City of Ontario, the municipality following from place to place. This is identification of an entity that's acting. You can hear the ignition. This is graffiti protective companies. That's gang stalking, following from place to place, and that's exactly what you're doing in the specific environment. And the City of Ontario is not going to help this little company. And license 099794, starting the ignition is light activity and audible activity creation. All right, and this is a demon that's engaging what is monitoring. The gang stalking immigrants are going to be deported, okay? This is P.O.C, there you go. You're going to be deported. That's audible activity as well. And this is, again, the City of Ontario that's engaging what is facilitating that. This is surveillance that the graffiti protective coatings is engaging in. That is surveillance, all right? The ignition starting is activity creation and light activity. This is mental illness while an entity is engaged in that, and that's the Nephilim. The Nephilim is just wearing a brand, graffiti protective coatings, and I'm going to prosecute that company. But anyway, this is P.O.C. They're typically hiring immigrants. And so this is, again, letting ICE know that graffiti protective coatings is engaged in what is terrorism, and they're engaged in hiring terrorists to facilitate that, which is relevant to the public corruption that the state of California is engaged in. And that is relevant with regard to deporting graffiti protective coating employees, and also shutting down businesses that are facilitating terrorism, if you will. But nonetheless, I want to get back to what I was stating. The entity is engaging in the pattern of conduct and is doing so while the Ontario Police that are gang stalking with companies like graffiti protective coatings, that are gang stalking with immigrants as enemies, both of them enemies of the United States based on what they're doing. And what you're doing is based on your true sentiment toward this country and the rights of American citizens, especially while you want to wear a uniform and be identified as a police officer. You are a malicious psychopath that don't actually hold those sentiments, and you don't actually regard the oath or the Constitution or American citizens, and you're not engaged in any public service or protection of American citizens that you're gang stalking. And you're maliciously doing so in that position to get away with murdering them, to get away with targeting them, to get away with violating them in ways in which shall be appreciated under federal law. The shining of light is not something that's just going to be an annoyance to you, which is you can prosecute for harassment. For example, if somebody in a police uniform or a police vehicle every single night engaged in shining you with light, every night you're looking at the same officer, you would think on the surface that that would be just an annoyance, but actually you could prosecute for harassment. It is something that would be taken in jest. It would not be taken seriously. And that is actually under the law. That's not appropriate because harassment is harassment. And that's something that the entity takes very lightly, but that is by design because the entity is given what is unwarranted legitimacy to police departments that are actually engaged in criminal surveillance, and they are the Nephilim engaging in surveillance in the United States. Okay, there's a reason why it's taken in jest, but moreover, it's not going to be taken in jest. It's relevant to what is, first of all, knowledge of what I'm documenting on my device. This demon is hostile because I'm documenting, and I'm going to prosecute ARCO as a sex offender, as a terrorist, engaging in what is assault with a deadly weapon as an entity, engaging in what is terrorism with the Ontario Police Department, stalking me by helicopter, and ARCO is sharing in that. Literally, the demon of that employee is monitoring in real time while she's closing the door of the shop, and she's getting in her vehicle. She's molesting me with light. She's engaging in the elements of monitoring with the demons of the Ontario Police that proceed to fly in circles over me like they are everywhere in Ontario, by the way, and doing so with ARCO and ARCO's employees and ARCO's customers, where ARCO is also profiting upon gang stalking. And as I document the sex offender, that is ARCO, headquartered in Los Angeles, California, this demon that's both engaged in federal stalking on my device, on the internet, absent any warrant or probable cause, in concert with the people of the state, where there doesn't even exist any basis to have that level of violation of privacy and unwarranted invasion of your privacy on your devices and on the internet. The entities and surveillance, the entities engaging in what is through the Ontario Police, which is a demon, ongoing substantial molestation of light all over my person, and doing so with knowledge, first of all, that I'm documenting it. That's a psychological torture. Oh, you don't like that? I'm going to do more of it. Oh, I'm going to do that again and again and again and again and again. And but it's also relevant to a sex offense, and that's a psychopath as well. The mind state, that's a sex offender, the mens rea behind that. You want to engage in violating my person as I'm breaking down this demon's purpose. And I took a picture of what is criminal presence in the path, the Ontario Police Department. This is relevant to what Mike LORENZ is engaging. Mike LORENZ is the Nephilim as well. This is a demon. And the criminal conduct of this department is directly proving what is his condition and what he is engaging in as well, and what he is fully aware of being documented. He knows that I'm telling the truth about him being a sex offender. He knows that I'm telling the truth about him being a demon. He knows the truth that I'm exposing him very specifically while identifying him as what he is. This is the Nephilim. And the Nephilim are engaged in masquerading amongst law enforcement in California and in this country. And they're not engaged in law enforcement. They're engaged in surveillance. Okay. And the entity that's engaging in that is doing so pursuant to what is sexual violence that I will prosecute the entity for. The business that's engaging in it, they're all engaging in an irrelevant position. Okay, as I'm prosecuting as one person based on location, but understand the entity includes the state of California. I'm going to prosecute the state of California as a sex offender. I'm going to prosecute the state of California for committing assault with a deadly weapon while they're engaged in gang stalking, incentivizing and facilitating and enabling, rewarding violence by a population who are the Nephilim as well, engaging in what is monitoring, which is demonic. That's what the Nephilim are doing. They're monitoring everyone, everywhere. And I've also proven it because they're doing it in an environment that is entirely supernatural. In fact, it's demonic, and it shows that they are demons, and that they are demons who are monitoring me, targeting me. Monitoring is synonymous with targeting. Targeting is synonymous with what is surveillance. Surveillance is that which is unconstitutional by the government that is made up of the Nephilim. Okay, the entities engaging in this pattern of conduct, and I want to be clear, 7:37 a.m. is the current time. And the entities engaging in this while I am documenting the sex offense. And so then what do the Nephilim do? Via a demon operating an Ontario Police Department vehicle, they engage in that sexual act of violence again. And they're also doing it when you're analyzing it merely on the physical, which is, and you're also analyzing it on the physical when you're prosecuting federal group stalking and monitoring. But when you are subject to the illusion, ignorant about surveillance, ignorant about demons, you are just looking at what is an officer that is still on the wrong side of the law harassing you while you're standing on public property. Why are you harassing me, aiming light on me? What am I doing? What do you want? Didn't do anything, just continue driving down the parking lot and then exiting, driving on what is D Street. And I took pictures of that while they are engaging in what is federal group stalking and monitoring, light activity, the perpetual sex offense, molestation, the entities engaging in what is now sexual violence that they're going to be prosecuted for. So I just want to state the entities engaging in what is sexual violence with the people of the state They're stalking in bathrooms. That the Ontario Police Department is being disbanded for stalking me in bathrooms, for keeping my vagina and genitalia under surveillance, for sex trafficking me, for touching me in my sleep in an unconscious state, for doing so while you've repeatedly engaged in what is kidnapping and you don't even have authority under the law, while you're engaged in surveillance, which is proven already, while you're engaging in acts of violence because you're being documented for keeping me under surveillance, which is psychopathic. In addition to your psychopathic documented pattern of stalking me and harassing me with helicopters, following me around. This is the Nephilim that are mentally ill, and they are obsessed with me. And they're also obsessed with the illusion, okay? The illusion of having any legitimate appearance before the world and before the feds. The same feds that engaged in criminal activity against me, and I'm going to prosecute for that. And this is what you're witnessing. While the federal government is engaged in this criminal system, the federal government is also going to provide justice, and I'm going to prosecute the federal government as well. And as the entities engaging in that, that is what I stated at the outset is going to happen, and that's exactly what's going to happen. While the same enemy, my own enemy, is the federal government, is the same one that's supposed to be protecting me from that which they have inflicted upon me, and they are also the same one that are going to be providing justice. But this is the entity that's engaging in that, and this is what you are subject to when you're being terrorized by your own government. And this is, again, the shared experience by those that are in other parts of the world, and the United States is not different. We are not a moral leader. We are not any sort of example that other countries should follow because of what it is that I'm exposing, which has been underway for years. This is the entity. The United States government is relying on illusions, is relying on what is deception. And that's the reality, and that's the danger of the Nephilim as well. That's the danger that's presented by that. But nonetheless, I just want to make sure that that's understood, because what I'm documenting this morning, that demon, license 8ZNY193, she is going to federal prison. She's targeting. That was assault with a deadly weapon, not an accident. No accidents are happening, by the way, amongst the Nephilim, which I'm letting you know are here. Insurance companies are engaged in monitoring and surveillance. They are creating what are businesses that make money off of collisions. And guess what? The Nephilim commit intentional acts while they seek to recover through insurance companies. And those insurance companies, they're the same condition. They make money off of this. Is the entity that's engaging in this corrupt business practice. While they're all engaged in what I'm exposing, gang stalking. This is why they have insurance policies on me. That insurance company is seeking to make money, and so are the people, the state, the government that's engaging in the creation of insurance policies upon the targeted individual. The insurance company is engaged in surveillance. They know who I am. They're not engaged in what is ignorantly creating policies over American citizens that they don't know about. They don't know who you are. This is removing all of those layers of illusions. I'm going to prosecute through and through. Understand how it is conspiracy to commit murder amongst an entity that is engaging in criminal surveillance. And literally, while they are targeting me, it is letting you know about what the entity is doing and what it knows. And it's a means of very thorough, very detailed surveillance and specific knowledge about me, okay? Including where I am and the status of my vagina, okay? It is 7:42 a.m. It is Saturday, September 27, 2025. The entity is prosecuting itself, stalking me with impossible light, stalking me under a fake sun, stalking me through a police department, using your fire department and using your planes. It's serving to put them where everybody belongs. I'm going to prosecute the insurance companies. I'm going to prosecute the corrupt businesses. I'm going to prosecute those kidnapping. I'm going to prosecute the government itself. I'm going to prosecute the immigrants, and they are going to be prosecuted, and they're serving justice by being deported out of this country. Deportation is justice, amongst many other things. This is P.O.C. This is the entity. As you can hear, the plane activity stalking at 537. Now stalking where I'm at 224 North Euclid Avenue, the Ontario Town Square. And so is Wells Fargo. Her license plate. Stalking me with the people of the state that surround her while she's stalking in the path with light. And as I document her, these demons coming from both sides, crossing path. These are psychopaths that are stalking as an entity, license 8VXF855, and also gang stalking by place of employment. And she is systematically engaging in surveillance and furtherance of murder, systematically engaging gang stalking with the Ontario Police Department as I document the public nuisance, but also what is terrorism by that police department that is targeting me specifically with Wells Fargo at the Ontario Town Square. And she is stalking in the path as I capture her are engaging in what is light activity surveillance, and then the entity that just hops out and goes into Starbucks and buys something, or goes to the gas station and pumps some gas or buys some chips, or goes into work to engage in surveillance for the duration of the day, which is supposed to be the form for while they're engaging in criminal monitoring. 7:59 and 36 seconds. 7:59 and 41 seconds, a demon is appearing, crossing path, monitoring as I use my device. This is a white, bald male. 7:59 and 47 seconds, a Latino male, which is representing the Ontario municipality, the Ontario municipal utilities on both sides of my person, surrounding while I'm documenting this particular demon, who is indeed stalking, and so is Wells Fargo. The specific environment, including the stalking by the City of Ontario by planes, where this is the entity that is targeting using commercial planes. This is license 8VXF855. This is P.O.C. It's the entity that's engaged in monitoring on my device as well. And the evidence shows the entity targeting. In the video that I captured, you can hear the plane activity, which you're not going to hear from the Ontario Town Square over there at 537 North Euclid Avenue, where the entity is not flying any planes over there anymore, north of my person. This is stalking to the location where I'm at, 224 North Euclid Avenue, where Ontario Municipal Utilities is gang stalking, with the gang stalking skinhead wearing the vest around his blue t-shirt. He's also gang stalking as the fake sun is shining. I documented him doing that days ago, and he's gang stalking with the same City of Ontario. As he's crossing path, a demon is stalking in a commercial plane. They're doing so while I'm documenting this demon, again with this license plate 8XVF 855, I believe, 8VXF855, who was monitoring me with demons that are in position for purposes of crossing path, both to surround me, that's a threat, but also to monitor their crossing path. They're moving around while I'm using my device, okay? And they're doing so in concert with the demons that are on Euclid Avenue. That's traffic, which is ongoing maintenance of activity. This is P.O.C. Wells Fargo is sharing in that criminal activity. They're doing so while Wells Fargo is closed as well, gang stalking and then going to the ATM. That's documented facilitation. And Wells Fargo is going to be prosecuted. It's currently 8:06 a.m. This is P.O.C. 8:08 a.m. Demon crossing path on foot. Demons maintaining surveillance on Euclid. Demon license plate 8VXF855, stalking with light while I'm processing my podcast and plane activity is sounding. P.O.C. It's 8:08 a.m. This is monitoring on my device. Just like the demon engaging in what is assault with a deadly weapon, in concert with that airport stalking me north of this location over the ARCO, which I captured on video, where also no arrivals or departures, which Alan D. WAPNER is even publishing on the website, is occurring. That was the entity targeting together by assault and battery with a deadly weapon, for which she's going to prison. And this license, this demon, this license 8VXF855 is engaging in what is targeting, and doing so by place of employment as well. Wells Fargo is engaged in surveillance. This demon that's an employee of Wells Fargo is engaged in surveillance, and she's doing so with the people of the state while she is in close proximity parked in the parking lot, which is relevant positioning and light activity. She's also engaged in what is monitoring on my device, which the government has no warrant or probable cause to engage in with her, and via the people of the state, which is what she represents. And these are the enemies of the United States. The people of the state. P.O.C. All right, it's currently 9:39 a.m. This is documentation of the Ontario International Airport, domestic terrorist, engaging in terrorism in the U.S., and they are doing so by keeping me under surveillance. And as I publish this documentation, as I process it on my device, which is the Ontario International Airport, this is a function of the government, the City of Ontario, the State of California, that's engaging in federal stalking. The entity is maintaining commercial planes. That is the maintenance of amplified audible activity, while the airport is also targeting in this location, because the entity that's engaging in what is gang stalking me is doing so outside of what are any planes that are taking off heading to any destination, pursuant to what the airport is conducting as a means of business, distinct from what is the entity is engaging in pursuant to what is targeting me. And the entity is targeting further into the conspiracy to murder, the target individual, which the Ontario International Airport is criminally keeping under surveillance with the Ontario Police Department, with the people of the state, sharing in acts of violence such as stalking by helicopter, sharing in acts of violence such as assault and battery with a deadly weapon, engaging in the acts of violence of stalking and psychological torture with simultaneity to my every act of use of my device in order to document. Okay, and this is what is ongoing at the Ontario Town Square. Wells Fargo at 240 North Euclid Avenue is engaging in ongoing psychological torture. They are documenting themselves at work, engaging in surveillance with the City of Ontario that is maintaining ongoing frequent flights over me at the Ontario Town Square, doing so pursuant to what is the documented pattern, and the proof that the entity is keeping the fake sun here is the proof that the Ontario International Airport is engaged in gang stalking. It is also proven through what is the documentation of the entity that is hovering over this sky space at 224 North Euclid Avenue, where Wells Fargo is gang stalking, and so is the Downtown Ontario Luxury Apartments, so is the OVITT Family Community Library, so is the 280 North Limit Apartments, so is the Ontario Fire Department, the Ontario City Hall, where Paul Leon, the gang stalking mayor, and the gang stalking Ontario City Council is engaging in surveillance, while the entity is engaging in what is keeping me under surveillance, and doing so pursuant to what it is that I'm publishing on my phone, which is the podcast. This is criminal conduct. Alan D. Wapner, Kurt Hagman, Ronald Loveridge, Jim Bowman, Julia Gu are engaged in this ongoing targeting in furtherance of murder, psychological torture committed in furtherance of murder in violation of the federal stalking statute, doing so with the people of the state where I'm at, in the City of Ontario. And in the immediate environment, it is the Mule Cart Smokehouse, the downtown, the various apartment complexes, the venues that are surrounding me that are sharing in surveillance, and also the people of the state that are on the roads and the highways. Okay, license 8TSF768. The entity, the Ontario Wi-Fi is the federal stalking, the venue, if you will, online, where the entity is engaged in what is repeatedly disconnecting my device from the Wi-Fi while they are crossing path, while the entity is crossing path by commercial planes, which the Ontario Board, this is criminal activity by domestic terrorists. This is also identifying for you by name those that are of the Nephilim, and this is the demonic system that they're engaging in criminal surveillance and furtherance of murder. This airport is going to be removed. This is the airport that's targeting me by stalking by the ARCO gas station, and doing so by stalking at 537 North Euclid Avenue, where you can hear the plane activity in the video that I captured this morning. This is where, again, Alan D. Wapner, Kurt Hagman, Ronald Loveridge, Jim Bowman, Julia Gu are engaging in what is terrorism and not the legitimate business of an airport. And they're doing so with the intent to obstruct justice, okay? They're doing so with demons such as license 9HTK424 and their co-defendants abruptly moving their vehicles. They're going into the venue of Wells Fargo, engaging in criminal activity. The business of Wells Fargo is going to be used to prosecute Wells Fargo and to prosecute the people of the state that are gang stalking via and with Wells Fargo. 21422C3 on surveillance cameras entering into Wells Fargo, gang stalking me and doing so with the demons of the Ontario Board, who are engaging in terrorism and psychological torture, the perpetual sex offense, and ongoing terrorism and harassment, because the demons of the Ontario Board are fully aware that I'm documenting the pattern of conduct and documenting them. 9DFK437, 9MZK741. Already documented the demon that is gang stalking by sitting in the white Jeep 8VXF855 in concert with that same Ontario Board. License 6V22081, 70599R3. License 8ZYA363. This is Wells Fargo's criminal conduct. They're monitoring together with the demons that are a form of amplified audible activity. Those are demons. 6WDG180. And so are the people of the state. License 8C90550, 8YXS819, 3TRK623, 9ROL389, 8UNF281, 67524D3, 9HIX985, 5BDZ755, 8LPG525, 7AET763, 7LGN016, 5ETT372, 5WXY809, 7UEF545, 9FPN882. Okay, so I think I read that one already. I think I read that one too. ARL5942, which is a Wisconsin plate. The entity is engaging in what is monitoring my vagina while I'm documenting all these license plates. And the entity that whose license plate I already read is engaging in surveillance, stalking in the path where my properties located with regard to what is maintaining a method of light activity with regard to what is surveillance. Okay, Wells Fargo is engaging in surveillance with the people of the state. Wells Fargo is going to be prosecuted for all of the above, and I've documented Wells Fargo. In my documentation of Chase Bank, you need to understand, as you're documenting the entity that is gang stalking with LAPD flying in circles over my bank, maintaining impossible light activity inside of that bank, keeping the fake sun over me as I'm at that bank, and that's at 1600 Vermont in Los Angeles. That's a documentation regarding the knowledge of what Wells Fargo is engaging in, and it is criminal surveillance with the state of California, doing so with demons such as 31739V2, who is documented and knows that they're being documented and is engaging in surveillance by stalking in the path, maintaining light as I walk from the street, and the entity that is engaged in what is, this is the Nephilim, that are engaged in what is massive surveillance, for which the entity is going to be removed from position. This is what the Ontario police are gang stalking me with. They are demons alike, stalking with light, sex offenders monitoring in the bathroom. This is, again, license 31739V2, that's engaging in what is making sure that they're maintaining presence as around my property where I'm going to walk back to. That's the entity that is stalking in the path. That's the entity that is stalking you while they're there at a location that you're heading to before you, because gang stalking is not based on chronology. Gang stalking is based on massive surveillance surrounding you at all places at all times, and you will be prosecuted as the gang stalking demons wearing Ontario Police Department uniforms at the library before me while the fake sun remains over me, proving that you're stalking and proving that you're also the Nephilim. Engaging in stalking on an ongoing basis using helicopters, that's also putting them in prison. But nonetheless, that's the pattern of conduct. Stalking with light, and the people of the state are engaging in that. And as I've documented Chase Bank, that's engaged in surveillance, documenting what is Wells Fargo. You know that Wells Fargo is gang stalking, making a fake, keeping a fake sun over me while the establishment is in my presence, which is the stalking conduct, surveillance conduct of that business. I've documented Chase Bank engaging in that. You know that Wells Fargo is engaged in surveillance, maintaining impossible light activity, just like I'm documenting inside of my bank as a patron, where my private information in violation of existing federal laws, Chase Bank and so as Wells Fargo is engaged in violating that. The entity is engaged in what is stalking with impossible light, as I've documented, in multiple Chase Banks. So this is already published on the venue of the internet. Chase Bank is gang stalking just like Wells Fargo is gang stalking. This is an entity that's engaged in surveillance with the City of Ontario, the Ontario Police gang stalking me by helicopter at Wells Fargo, the Los Angeles Police Department gang stalking me by helicopter at Chase Bank in the same exact specific environment. And this is the criminal conduct that Wells Fargo is sharing in with the people of the state, the demons that are in its parking lot, that are driving by on the roads and the highways, that are working inside of that establishment, that are all around that establishment, which creates a means whereby ongoing stalking and surveillance can be committed. All right. Wells Fargo is being prosecuted for that. Wells Fargo is sharing in what the mayor, Paul Leon, is engaging in, who is also in relevant position at 303 East B Street, which is in the same plaza at the City of Ontario, where the entity is engaged in what is stalking repeatedly. And this is, again, criminal conduct of the Ontario International Airport. Not licensed, but Alan D. Wapner, Kurt Hagman, Ronald Leverage, Jim Bowman, and Julia Gu, engaging in what is surveillance, doing so while the Ontario International Airport maintaining ongoing psychopathic level of frequency with regard to the planes. I mean, every time I engage in what is uploading what I'm recording now and I begin processing it, another plane. As I engage in what is taking a screenshot of the people of the state stalking at the Ontario Town Square, another plane. As the demons, as I'm showing you pictures of them walking by me, that's letting you know it's another plane. The entities engaging in this pattern of conduct together with the demons that are surrounding on the roads and the highways, and they also did so with this same entity that committed assault with a deadly weapon. That is, again, the criminal conduct of Alan D. Wapner, Kurt Hagman, Ronald Leverage, Jim Bowman, and Julia Gu, committing assault with a deadly weapon as an entity, keeping me under surveillance using commercial planes, which is documented criminal conduct of this airport board on video last night, acting with license 8ZNY913, who is acting as an entity, engaging in what is a documented act of violence with the intent to obstruct justice while I'm documenting the airport board that is gang stalking me in furtherance of murder, engaging in what is federal stalking under Title 18, and doing so with the terrorists that are the Ontario Police. And this is the Nephilim all together that I'm exposing while public corruption is being exposed, while prosecution for terrorism is being executed. And throughout the course, what is because of my public investigation, not because of the criminal conduct of the federal government and Jason Isaac Fields. And the entity that is, again, on another day, engaging in what is not providing justice to me, is speaking to what is longer time in prison for demons like Jason Isaac Fields. He's going to prison and not getting out. What I suffer is what the entity is going to suffer with regards to sentencing to prison. Understand that. It is directly commensurate to the harm suffered by an American citizen. what the government is inflicting. It is informing how you are going to be punished. It's based on what is the real-time harms, the inhumane suffering that is ceaseless. It is perpetual, and it is that which is designed to accomplish murder. And you are going to go to prison for it, especially while I have your name and I have the ability to document you in real time as you represent an entity. License 5GHP036, gang stalking with Wells Fargo. Okay, and so is the demon engaging in surveillance, gang stalking at the Ontario Town Square, where the entity is maintaining a means of criminal presence as an entity that is stalking by planes, which is the criminal conduct of the Ontario Board and the Ontario Executive Team. And those names include as well. These are the demons that are going to be removed from position, while criminal activity is the product of the Ontario International Airport that is engaged in targeting me, not a legitimate business. And so are the airlines. That's another means of prosecuting. The airlines engage in what is assault and battery as an entity last night with license 8ZNY 913. They're doing so while I've already established that they're targeting at every location in the city of Ontario where no pilot, and this is also to be proven in the prosecution and the removal of the airport, that is a terrorist and a sex offender, and engage in what is torture, pursuant to what is the purpose of murder, which is the purpose of the airport board to commit murder as an entity, and the purpose of the executive team of the Ontario International Airport to commit murder, while they are targeting me in furtherance of the federal government's criminal conduct that they thought that they were going to avoid being exposed for by gang stalking me with the terrorists of the Ontario International Airport. The airlines and the corrupt leadership and everybody employed at that airport is engaged in targeting me. And that's very specific with regard to the documentation of targeting as I am using my communication device, and also where I'm located in the city of Ontario. It is the Ontario Board, the Ontario Executive Board includes Atif Icardi, Karen Kavanagh, Angela Lauber Conroy, who is being prosecuted by literally the audible activity of planes, which is not going to be heard. And this is what the entity is doing with every upload, with every means of documentation that is created on my device, with everything that I'm uploading onto the internet. And also, this is what is removing my phone from the Wi-Fi network of the Ontario Wi-Fi, where they're engaged in federal stalking online. Okay, and I'm located at 224 North Euclid Avenue, where Wells Fargo is indeed engaged in gang stalking with the demon-possessed that are maintaining and using Wells Fargo as a means of criminal presence in the path. The entity is engaging in that, and that is, again, criminal conduct by the Ontario Executive Team. That is at 9:52 a.m. This is also outside of what is published regarding the business of the Ontario International Airport, while the Ontario International Airport and every airline is engaged in targeting. And it's also relevant to the malice. The Ontario Police Department engages in the same thing, the ongoing circular conduct flying over my head in circles. That's the entity that's acting with impunity and furtherance of murder. The Ontario International Airport engaging what is targeting in real time, while their clear targeting is documented as a matter of record. That's the impunity of that same entity. And this is the airport board and the executive team that are going to be prosecuted for terrorism. And they are also going to be removed altogether. The airport's being removed. This is, again, the criminal conduct of what is Elisa Gray, James Kessler, Jamal Alvarez, Aaron Cello, Celeste Heineken, Charles Miwa, again, Karen Kavanagh, Angela Conroy, Angela Lauber Conroy, and Atif El Kadi. I want to be clear, immigrants, I.I.S is deporting you, so just want you to know there's some probable cause to suspect some of these terrorists are indeed immigrants, granted the privilege to be here, and it's not to engage in terrorism with the entity that's providing evidence against people like Atif El Kadi, people like Charles Miwa, people like Jamal Aviles, the entity that's engaging in even Angela Lauber Conroy. She's not necessarily a natural-born citizen. And if she's, again, a citizen that's been granted a privilege to be here, she's going to be deported like any other immigrant that's not welcome in this country engaging in terrorism, like the Ontario International Airport is engaging in. These two flights happening in that level of frequency is that which is not reflected on the Ontario International Airport website because it's based on targeting me. And also, as I refer to it, the entity is engaging in a documented pattern of engaging in that which I speak of at the same time. It's not because I'm clairvoyant and I have the schedule of the airport memorized, which would not result in simultaneous flight over the Ontario Town Square, by the way. Neither would it result in any flights hovering and being heard and seen over the 7-Eleven at 636 North Vine Avenue or over Woodside Senior Apartments inside of Tracy Banks' apartment. This Ontario executive team and the airport board are being prosecuted as terrorists, and they are going to be prosecuted with regard to every criminal act that the entity is acting and relying on that airport that is a terrorist in the city of Ontario with the state of California, with the federal government, by the way. The federal government. This is, and that they're also in violation of federal law while they're using planes and helicopters, interstate commerce, to engage in the P.O.C. Okay, this is again 9:54 a.m. And the people that stayed at Wells Fargo simultaneously crossing path, and this is what the entity is doing. The Latino male that you see with the scooter, with the backwards hat, the brown shorts, and the black T-shirt is monitoring and doing so conspicuously stalking as an entity while the entity maintains presence and close proximity to me and aerial surveillance over my head and targeting while I am documenting that. This is what the entity is doing second by second as I'm uploading the podcast. And this is federal stalking by the airport board, federal stalking by the Ontario Executive Board, and those names in particular are relevant to those that are going to be removed from position, and they are going to be prosecuted as the entity of terrorists that are engaging in what is ongoing psychological torture, and that's what you're listening to. As you document, the entity engages in more of that monitoring conduct, which is criminal activity. They're engaged in federal stalking as you hear the plane, as the plane is crossing path. They're engaged in criminal surveillance in real time. They also do so with the criminal intent to harass you and terrorize, which is relevant to your documenting. The government is monitoring me, and then as you are documenting the government monitoring you, the government is then motivated to engage in more and more of that conduct. This is relevant to what the entity typically is doing to psychologically torture and cause an American citizen, for example, to unravel, where that is relevant to the psychological harms inherent to gang stalking, and this is the criminal activity of the Ontario International Airport. This is putting Fields and the federal officials targeting me in prison. Okay, the criminal activity of the illegitimate Ontario International Airport, that's a terrorist, is going to be putting Fields in prison. And that's exactly where he's going to remain. And he's doing so with the population that's stalking, doing so in real time. This is the entity I'm capturing. This is the demon that's stalking while the entity is maintaining plane activity over me. And I'm capturing images of him right now. He's crossing path and doing so with the entity that's relying on the people of the state to maintain presence. Doing so while the entity is doing so as a corrupt business. Wells Fargo is engaged in stalking me while that specific environment pursues me while I'm in the presence of that venue. Okay, that's what the entity is doing exactly with the Ontario Police Department. At doing so, as I'm documenting a pattern, this is what the entity is doing while they commit assault and battery as an entity. And the Ontario Board and the Ontario Executive Team share in that violence. That's P.O.C. Okay, this is the Nephilim, Mike Lorenz is engaging in that. I'm going to go ahead and document that and put that also on X. And Wells Fargo is engaging in the same conduct that Chase Bank is, that I'm documenting the LAPD engaging in, flying in circles over my bank, doing so while you'll see the fake sun over me. This is at 1600 Vermont. This is documented same time of year in June of 2024, where the entity is targeting me in the same way that the Ontario Police, the City of Ontario is targeting in the same way that the City of Los Angeles is. And that's the disbanding of the Nephilim, referring to itself as the Ontario Police Department. And there is also a direct tie regarding the criminal conduct of the Ontario Police and the Ontario International Airport while I am documenting them engaging in that P.O.C. All right, it is currently, again, when you're listening to that 9:57, that ongoing documented pattern. Securitas is gang stalking. I want to be clear, engaging in what is criminal summoning. Securitas is gang stalking in the specific environment, not engaging in any lawful business or employment of that third party that is gang stalking with that police department. And the Ontario Board that is gang stalking, again, let me read you their names that are going to be prosecuted for terrorism by targeting. This is Alan D. Wapner, Kurt Hagman, Ronald Loveridge, Julia Gu, Jim Bowman, and they are engaged in threatening my life and safety while then the Ontario Police Department use what are corrupt officials that are bearing weapons and engaging in targeting. The public nuisance is occurring at the same time that I'm documenting. That's the pattern while they're keeping the evidence under surveillance, and the entity is acting with the demons that are on the Ontario Executive Board as well, and their names include, again, those that are going to be subject to deportation. That's exactly what's being deported, what I.I.S has the jurisdiction to authority under the law as they are engaged in what is this gang violence, doing so under the corrupt business practices, the terrorism by the Ontario International Airport. That is, again, including this terrorist, Atif El-Kadi, very much likely to be subject to what is deportation upon targeting me with the Ontario Police Department and the Ontario International Airport in furtherance of murder, in doing so with the entity that is engaging in a pattern of conduct of targeting. Karen Kavanaugh, Angela Lauber Conroy, Elisa Gray, Charles Miwa, Celeste Heinonen, I believe, Aaron Cello, Jamal Aviles, and James Kessler. These are the terrorists that are calling themselves an Ontario Executive Board and the Ontario Executive Team. They're gang stalking, just like the Ontario Police Department is, the Ontario International Airport is, and so is the Ontario Police that are gang stalking me as I document the terrorists of the Ontario International Airport who have no flights that are going to appear or occur or be heard or hover over the Ontario Town Square at 224 North Euclid Avenue, where, by the way, the fake sun is both rising and setting. That's also giving you context regarding the terrorists of the Ontario International Airport that are going to be removed, as well as the terrorists of the Ontario Police Department. Again, that's Mike Lorenz and the entity that is engaging in that P.O.C, monitoring on the venue of the internet. All right, that's P.O.C. Let me show you the entity flying over the top of my head. That's P.O.C. I'm going to put this on X, and that's the entity that's gang stalking. This demon is monitoring inside of the library on behalf of the same police department, by the way. All right, the African American with the dreads. He is monitoring with the entity that's engaging what is stalking by helicopter, doing so while I am capturing it on podcast, and they're engaged in that same conduct. I'm capturing images of the people of the state who I'm documenting by license plate. License. Stalking with Ontario PD, 8ZSL337. And that's, again, the entity that's stalking in the path with light during the day, impossible light activity. It's moving against me while they engage in this conduct, which is never the product of sunlight. And covering up the fake sun does not change that. This is a method of stalking with light, and the clock is audible noise, and they're monitoring on my device. Engaging in surveillance in their vehicles, stalking with the Ontario Police and the airport, 9TDP376. And this is exactly what the entity was doing at the ARCO, as I'm documenting the people of the state and the Ontario International Airport, engaging in what is the perpetual sex offense, engaging in what is harassment and terrorism, in concert with the Ontario International Airport. That airport board and that airport executive team are accountable for what is ongoing terrorism, and doing so with the Ontario International Airport is the airport board, the airport executive team threatening my life and safety while I'm documenting them as the terrorists that they are, and they're going to be subject to deportation as well as every other terrorist that is engaging in the P.O.C. All right, this is P.O.C. The airport that is engaged in takeoff does not include taking off over the 224 North Euclid Avenue. And the entity is engaging in this about approximately every 90 seconds. P.O.C. That's the P.O.C. All right, and this is the City of Ontario targeting by the airport and targeting by the police department that are going to be removed from existence based on the terrorism that they are engaging in. And this is, again, criminal conduct that Jason Isaac feels that the federal government is engaging in, sharing in, with regard to what is the system of gang stalking, which is committed in furtherance of murder. The entity engaging what is gang stalking me and doing things like assault and battery with a deadly weapon, and it's supposed to be an accident, and it's not, when you're targeting with the City of Ontario International Airport, and you're targeting with the Ontario Police Department, and you're targeting in the specific environment which Wells Fargo shares in at 240 North Euclid Avenue. The people of the state are gang stalking and targeting while they're engaging in the elements of monitoring, and they're doing so as a city-wide effort. Okay, this is providing, again, jurisdiction of the federal government to deport every immigrant in the City of Ontario that are sharing and targeting with the state, because that's what the City of Ontario represents. They're doing so as a documented pattern, stalking me at the ARCO by helicopter, stalking me at the Ontario Town Square, which is an ongoing, frequently documented occasion under what is the fake sun that's present at 6 in the morning and present at 6 in the evening, where this same entity is engaging in the pattern of stalking in the path with light. That's what their vehicles represent. That's what the amplified noise is for the purpose of supplementing what is the covered up fake sun, which you know exactly where it is. The fake sun is over me, and that OVITT Family Community Library is where it's at when I walk inside of that entrance. That's a demon at the entrance maintaining flashing light. They are monitoring. That's P.O.C. That's the demons that are engaging what is the pattern of conduct surrounding the perimeter with light activity. This is 10:03 a.m. This is going toward the prosecution of the Ontario Board and the Ontario Executive Team that are engaging in the same threat that the entity, as I document the demons of Wells Fargo, 8ZVX813, I believe, as I'm documenting the people of the state by license plate. The Ontario Police Department engages in what is terrorizing and harassing me by stalking me by helicopter. As I'm documenting the terrorists of the Ontario International Airport, the entity is engaged in what is stalking and terrorizing by Ontario Police Department, and doing so with regard to what is evidence of clear targeting. Okay, Southwest Airlines is engaged in what is amplified audible activity and relevant positioning amongst what is the ongoing elements of monitoring, including light activity. This is the entity that's targeting at the Ontario Town Square, which is the pattern of conduct. where no planes are taken off, and the prosecution of the state will show that pilots taking off from the airport at 2500 Airport Drive are not they're not flying at that elevation. It's not creating that audible noise with regard to the zoning, with regard to the agreement between the city and the airport. The airport is targeting in conformity to the pattern of conduct. This is the Nephilim that are engaged in monitoring, and this is the inhumane means of surveillance in concert with the entity that is the Ontario Police Department, threatening my life and safety. And Southwest Airlines and every other airline is sharing in that targeting. And it is committed in furtherance of murder. There are no planes taken off. There are no pilots taken off hovering over the 280 North Lemon Apartments, over the Ontario Town Square. Neither is there any sun that's going to both rise and set at the same address, which is what the body of evidence shows. And the Ontario Board and the Ontario Executive Team are going to be prosecuted for the unlawful threat that they pose while they are being documented as the terrorists that they are, including while the police department targets me as I document them by name. This is going toward their prosecution. This is P.O.C. It's 10:05 a.m. The Ontario Town Square, 224 North Euclid Avenue, where the entity is targeting day and night like the Ontario International Airport has been documented for years. P.O.C. All right, I'm capturing video of the entity targeting in real time, as you can hear. So this is going to be included in the podcast, and this is document. I want to be clear. I'm going to go over these names because they're going to be prosecuted and subject to the deportation. The same exact treatment. The terrorists are all on the same level. There is no difference with regard to the prosecution for domestic terrorism. The Ontario Police Department is already subject to disbanding. This is relevant to the criminal conduct by the Ontario Police Department, such as C. Hazelwood and Ravanko, who are engaged in gang stalking, not law enforcement. While you're stalking me by helicopter as I'm engaged in documenting you, that's not a coincidence. That's the ongoing documented pattern. This is shared by the Ontario International Airport, again, who was threatening my life and safety as I'm documenting them, which is their pattern with the intent to obstruct justice. That is, again, Atif El-Kadi. This is, again, very likely an immigrant that's engaging in surveillance in the United States, doing so with the government that is threatening an American citizen who is enforcing their rights against immigrants whom they have a right to not be subject to surveillance and to not be threatened while an immigrant is gang stalking with your own government. This is Atif El-Kadi, who is subject to deportation if this is indeed not a natural-born citizen, someone granted a privilege to be in this country, and terrorism is the line, and you will be deported, and that's exactly what Atif El-Kadi is likely going to face. But this is the prosecution of the terrorists of the Ontario Executive Team. Karen Kavanaugh, Angela Lauber-Conroy, again, you have what is Celeste Heinonen, Charles Miwa, Elisa Gray, James Kessler, Jamal Aviles, and Aaron Chalo. They're engaged in specifically threatening my life as I document them, and including Southwest Airlines, which is sharing in that violent threat and psychological torture, harassment, and terrorism, as though these terrorists on the executive board are going to directly defy federal law and avoid a prosecution. In fact, it is proving that you are engaging in terrorism while you commit the offense in real time, while I'm documenting you by name and by department, agency, if you will, by organization. This is the entity that's engaging in gang stalking as an airport, and the pilots that are, again, taking off, this is evidence against the Ontario Executive Team and the airport board that are engaging in terrorizing me in furtherance of murder to get away with and help the federal government and help officials like Jason Fields, who are going to prison, and Tracy Banks, who are going to prison for engaging in what is stealing my property with the government that is both gang stalking me in order to get away with stealing my money and property while I remain subject to this system. And the airport board includes Alan D. Wapner, who is engaging in this violence that I'm documenting by the Ontario Police Department and the Ontario International Airport. Southwest Airlines, one of those airlines, but all of them are engaging in targeting. There are no pilots taken off from the airport that will engage in hovering over the 280 North Lemon Apartments. There are no published flights that are a part of what I'm documenting on my podcast. And the entity that's engaging in what is targeting in real time is the entity that includes Alan D. Wapner, Kurt Hagman, Ronald Loveridge, Jim Bowman, and Julia Gu, who are threatening my life and safety while they are terrorists engaging in targeting me with a specific purpose to accomplish psychological torture and murder committed as an entity, where that entity is both targeting you and then taking your life and controlling the narrative afterwards. These are enemies of the United States. These are domestic terrorists, and they're doing so while the entity then engages in what is stalking me by the Ontario Police Department, who are indeed engaged in what is surveillance. They're engaged in what is criminal surveillance with the intent to obstruct justice as well, and they're doing so while they committed assault with a deadly weapon as an entity last night and engaging in terrorism and psychological torture and harassment with that same Ontario Police Department at ARCO at 434 North Euclid Avenue, where also no pilots that are not targeting are taking off from the airport and then hovering over 434 North Euclid Avenue, like I documented on video in real time, where they are threatening me together, which is also no coincidence. Where I'm also showing you the supernatural environment, which shows you that they are the Nephilim that are going to be prosecuted, and they're engaging in that while the fake sun is the documentation showing that all of the entity, all of the city of Ontario is targeting me specifically. Julia Gu, Alan D. Wapner, Kurt Hagman, Ronald Loveridge, and Jim Bowman are also sex offenders engaging in the perpetual sex offense, and they are each engaging in what is monitoring my vagina with the demons of the Ontario Police Department as well, who share in that ongoing violence and stalking system as I document the airport and as I document the police department. The entity is engaging in sexual violence. Julia Gao is another homosexual that is keeping my vagina under surveillance, and she's also a violent serial killer engaging in what is targeting me in furtherance of murder, and doing so in real time while she is aware of the fact that I'm documenting. This is massive and detailed surveillance that's underway, and that is how you're getting to the detailed knowledge and criminal conduct of Julia Gu, who was threatening me specifically while I document her and the rest of the entity. All right, this is criminal conduct committed by the terrorist, the Ontario International Airport. The Ontario International Airport is proven in a wealth of documentation showing to be targeting everywhere that I'm going, stalking where I'm going. As I'm at the entrance of the OVITT Family Community Library, literally the stalking conduct where the planes are positioned is over the 280 North Limit Apartments entry of if right in front of the OVITT Family Community Library entrance. That's where the planes then move. That's not where they're flying now. They're flying over the 280 North Limit Apartments in alignment to what is the amphitheater that you can see the Ontario Town Square logo. That's where they're focusing on, because that's where I'm at. And they're doing so pursuant to real-time knowledge and documentation. And that's exactly what they're doing, monitoring on the Ontario Wi-Fi network. That's federal stalking. Doing so pursuant to use of my communication device. That's relevant to criminal surveillance in violation of the same federal stalking statute. And they're doing so with this frequency that is also uncharacteristic of what these terrorists publish on the website, pursuant to what is also how you're identifying that they're targeting me, because nothing that's on the website has anything to do with hovering over the 280 North Limit Apartments. And a very clear investigation showing a takeoff from the airport, which is committed and completed over the airspace of that airport. It is not inclusive of the Ontario Town Square, where you are flying miles away to then lower down in elevation and fly over this Ontario Town Square location, and doing so in concert with the Ontario Police Department, which again, the entity is doing in furtherance of the communication of an unlawful threat while they are gang stalking me in furtherance of murder in the first place. And they're doing so pursuant to a pattern of documented psychological torture, which is removal of the Ontario International Airport and a prosecution of these terrorists. The entity that is targeting through the Ontario International Airport. This is P.O.C. It is 10:11 a.m. And the Ontario OVITT Family Community Library is sharing with the Ontario Board, the Ontario Executive Team, the airlines that are engaging in surveillance. They're engaging in surveillance inside of that OVITT Family Community Library. All of this demonic, chaotic, sexually violent, and psychopathic targeting is underway inside of that building, which is the OVITT Family Community Library, and also occurring inside of the bathroom, where the police department is showing you, and they're demonstrating exactly what I'm documenting in the bathroom, that entity is monitoring my vagina and stalking me in the bathroom. This is P.O.C. It is currently 10:11 a.m. The Wells Fargo is located at 240 North Euclid Avenue, and they're sharing in surveillance while the demon-possessed are gang stalking by presence inside of that venue. Doing so, like I'm documenting, as you can juxtapose the criminal conduct in Ontario with the criminal conduct that is already on the record in Los Angeles, because the Ontario Police Department is gang stalking me at Wells Fargo, like the Los Angeles Police Department is gang stalking me at Chase Bank in the specific environment, pursuant to real-time knowledge and specifically targeting me and no one else. That's how unique and detailed the evidence is. And that's how unique and detailed the pattern of conduct is with regard to who it's tailored to. And it's an American citizen that is very specific, as an entity is acting, targeting that specific person as well. This is P.O.C. Securitas is pacing in relevant position, going to, again, turning his back to me while he's aware that he's being documented. And this is the same demon that's relevant to federal prison, engaging in criminal summoning with the Ontario Police Department over a term of years, by the way. This is the Asian male that wears the glasses and is engaging what is pacing around in the specific environment. I'm not even going to criticize his attire. The engaging what is pacing around in the specific environment, monitoring on a communication device, not engaged in what is constitutionally protected conduct, which is going to work. This is public corruption. P.O.C. It's 10:13. I want to be clear, where the entity is targeting because of the documentation of the entity, that is honing in on the criminal activity of that entity. So the Ontario Board is literally exposed as engaging in exactly what it is that I'm documenting, while the police department engages in what is stalking me by helicopter in real time while I'm documenting them. It is incriminating to the Ontario Board. It is incriminating to the Ontario Executive Board. And that's exactly what they're going to be prosecuted for stalking me and terrorizing me and threatening me with the Ontario Police Department, which is committed in furtherance of murder. So you are threatening my life in real time while I document you gang stalking me on the Ontario board and while I'm documenting you gang stalking me on the Ontario executive team. And that's going towards your prosecution and the loss of your jobs as terrorists using an airport to engage in surveillance against an American citizen that knows it and is documenting you. That's a very personal threat by the entity that is personal and also collective, which is committed as an entity that is conspiring murder altogether. And that Ontario board is being prosecuted by the criminal conduct and targeting of the Ontario police. Take note of that. This is P.O.C. SHR067, monitoring my device while stalking at Wells Fargo, engaging in transactions and presence at Wells Fargo to engage in gang stalking, which is committed in furtherance of murder, which Wells Fargo shares in, especially while doing so with the Ontario Police and the Ontario International Airport. Wells Fargo is located at 240 North Euclid Avenue in Ontario, California. These demons are operating their vehicles with regard to the operation of my device, which is engagement in the elements of monitoring while they are monitoring on a device that is engaging in surveillance via communication devices and on the venue of the internet. P.O.C. It's 10:18 a.m. License 8 U.S. 534 and hurrying up and going over here to cross path while I'm moving. This stalker license plate 9RUJ564 and license 8RTX905 is a female with black shorts on and a wife beater with tattoos on her arms and legs, and she's walking in on surveillance cameras inside of Wells Fargo. She's monitoring me in doing so. All right, this is gang stalking by Wells Fargo and the people of the state at Wells Fargo. It's 10:19 a.m. The entity honking its horn as I look at my phone to capture the time. That simultaneity of audible activity, that's monitoring. It is 10:19 a.m. City of Ontario, gang stalking, 10:20 a.m. And again, no flights taking off from the airport is including hovering planes that are creating this amplified plane engine noise, which is amplified noise. It's demonic in the first place, but you're going to prosecute the demon possessed based on the illusions that they present. And it's also an illusion that a takeoff from the airport is including hovering over the 224 North Euclid Avenue. All right, it's also an unintelligent illusion to keep a fake sun at this address for 12 hours. And it's also an illusion that is removal from evidence of targeting as you cover up the fake sun at any point in the day, on any day after you've already captured that. This is the entity that is gang stalking. They are setting up chairs at the Ontario Town Square. This is ongoing demonic pacing while the entity is stalking in the same exact manner using commercial planes over the Ontario Town Square. It is P.O.C. and Wells Fargo is also engaged in that. P.O.C. 10:30 a.m. The entities surrounding with light, the entities surrounding with plane activity, and the demons engaging what are stalking with another commercial plane as I am preparing to upload a video of them stalking by commercial planes over the Ontario Town Square, where the conclusive prosecution and the investigation of the City of Ontario will prove that, and I've already proven, but the ongoing, there's additional evidence to fully prove that the entity is targeting by stalking. Stalking is proven in the specific environment. You're targeting, that's why there's a whole fake sun over me. That's already on the record. You're stalking, that's why the Ontario police are stalking at the same location over the same person. You're stalking, that's why the people of the state are stalking with light. You're stalking, and that's why you're hovering over this location, which is miles away from where a takeoff would have been conducted in that same sky space. Okay, you're not taking off from the airport and then flying 4 miles away and hovering over the throughout the City of Ontario, because you're also stalking, because even west of this location, you're still hovering in the same manner over, for example, the Starbucks at 706 West Hope Boulevard, already on the record, okay? The entity engaging in what is 30 seconds later, stalking. This is 10:31 a.m. while I'm editing my video that's going on the internet, competing with my voice. That's not a takeoff from the airport. That's P.O.C. And that's the entity that's going to be removed. Understand that justice is going to include the removal of the airport. It's not going to remain just like the police department. That's not a police department. Is going to be removed. It's not going to remain. And this is the Ontario board that's engaging in what is terrorism, the perpetual sex offense, the impermissible threat, threatening my life as I'm exposing you as a terrorist, as an enemy of the United States, as a murderer. And you're also doing so while you are stalking and targeting me with the Ontario Police Department, while I'm exposing you as a terrorist and as a murderer. And engaging in psychological torture. That's the criminal conduct of every airline that is acting on behalf of that airport board and that Ontario executive team. And that frequency of those flights, the location where it's happening, the Ontario Town Square, the environment that is surrounding while it's occurring. This is the entity that's doing so while it's not published on the website. And a takeoff that's happening from the airport at 10:30 a.m., for example, is not hovering perpetually through the city miles northwest to then hover over the 224 North Euclid Avenue, is the entity that is stalking. And that is the removal of the airport board, the removal of the Ontario executive team. Those are demons, those are terrorists, those are gang stalkers, those are the Nephilim, and they're going to be prosecuted for terrorizing me while I also expose them for this criminal system. And that includes the civil and criminal prosecution of every airline. And it's state action. They are engaging, the airlines are gang stalking me with the police to threaten my life. The airport board, the Ontario executive team are threatening me while gang stalking me by the police while I document them. And that's relevant to the entity that's going to prison. The kidnappers themselves or the Ontario police are going to prison. All right, what are they doing while the entity is engaging in criminal summoning the other morning at 9:45 a.m. under the fake sun? And I walked outside of this same location at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And where is that sun? The same location. They're going to prison. All right, the entity is gang stalking with the Ontario International Airport that's engaging in stalking and monitoring together while they are keeping this evidence under surveillance, which is going to put you in prison even longer, and it's going to serve for what is a prosecution, the removal of that airport and the prosecution of those terrorists that are on the board and on the executive team. Okay, engaging in repeating that threat is the ongoing reiteration of the consequence under federal law. These are the enemies of the United States, and it includes the entity that is gang stalking. Paul Leon is engaging in this conduct. He's at 303 North Euclid Avenue. The Ontario City Hall is a gang stalker. The Ontario Fire Department and the Ontario Police that are using helicopters stalking. So is Securitas, pacing around in the specific environment right in front of your face, conspicuous stalking, while they're monitoring with that police department that they then engage in calling the police. She's sleeping on that. That's the entity that's engaging what is harassment and stalking you while you're engaging in surveillance. So understand the malice behind that. It is relevant to what is not exercise of authority under the law when you're engaged in gang stalking like the Ontario Police are with Securitas. 10:34 a.m. That's the entity that's doing so by the airlines and by the police department. As I speak, the entity is acting. That's how you're recognizing also that pattern. You're stalking by helicopters. You're doing so while the demons that don't want to go to prison for stalking with that same agency, that's exactly where they're going. The Ontario International Airport is gang stalking me with the Ontario Police Department. You are subject to federal prison. Alan D. Wapner, Jim Bowman, the entity that's engaging in what is gang stalking me by the Ontario Police Department while I'm documenting you by name, and you're engaging in a corrupt position and engaging in what is terrorizing me. You're subject to federal prison. I hope that you understand that while you're witnessing and engaging what is targeting me through the airlines and through the police department that's engaging in what is documented psychological torture, stalking, committed in furtherance of murder. It's not going to be my murder. It's going to be your time in prison. It is currently, by the way, 10:35 a.m. where the Ontario Board and the Ontario Executive Team, these are domestic terrorists that are threatening and they're stalking in the same impermissible manner that the people of the state are subject to federal prison for gang stalking with the Ontario Police or any police department. All right, this is what the Alvarado Apartments are engaging with the Los Angeles Police Department, and it's federal prison. It's not different for the demons of the Ontario Board and the Ontario Executive Team that are gang stalking me via the Ontario Police Department. It's federal prison. This is surveillance that they're maintaining real-time knowledge of, and Alan D. Wapner will rapidly find himself in a federal cell. This is how you're going to target domestic terrorists that think that they can, from a distance, threaten your life and psychologically torture you and sit on some illusion of some staircase in the sky where they're above the law, and they're not. You're going to federal prison for what I'm documenting. Again, as I refer to them, and I refer to the criminal conduct of the terrorists of the Ontario International Airport, the entity is engaging in what is stalking by the Ontario Police Department. The entity is stalking by the police to threaten your life and safety. Those are the ones that engage in kidnapping. Those are the ones that commit murder and then claim it to be the target individual's fault because you were engaging in some act that caused them to pull their weapon, because you were engaged in some act of violence that caused them to engage in to protect themselves or somebody else. They commit murders. They are engaged in what is communicating a threat specifically to your life while gang stalking me using a helicopter like you're going to drop bombs on me, because I'm referring to Jim Bowman and Alan D. Wapner and Julia Gu, who are terrorists gang stalking me. That's federal prison. I just want to be clear, because that's how terrorists are going to be prosecuted in the U.S., while the Ontario International Airport is providing for you understanding the template of how domestic terrorists are going to be removed from position, removed from existence, and placed in federal prison where they belong, where they commit murder through corrupt businesses and corrupt acts of the government, where they make a lot of money in doing so at the same time. Okay, that's Ronald Loveridge, Julia Gu, Alan D. Wapner, Jim Bowman, Kurt Hagman, etc. That's federal prison. They're corrupt officials, and that's the Nephilim. That's where they belong, by the way. This is the Nephilim that have created for themselves positions where they're engaged in what is monitoring and criminal surveillance, and they are engaging in the ongoing threat to my life as I document them. Engaging in what no pilot is going to prove is happening. They're going to prove that they're targeting as well, because a pilot taking off, which is going to be part of the prosecution with regard to targeting by the airports, will not include the elevation, will not include the audible noise that I'm capturing at the address that I'm located, and it will never occur under what is the circumstances of a sunrise and sunset. From 6 a.m. until after 6 p.m. the fake sun is at Ontario Town Square in alignment to me. The entities engaging, and that's over a term of years, not just 2025. And the entities engaging in this conduct, where pilots taking off from the airport, are not going to create any sort of disturbance at the Ontario Town Square, where the City of Ontario is relying on the airport as a means of monitoring activity, and the Ontario International Airport are relying on the people of the state and the City of Ontario around me to maintain a means of monitoring on the ground beneath me, where they're maintaining aerial surveillance, and they're doing so in furtherance of murder and kidnapping. Again, the entity is engaged in, this is what I'm doing on my phone, so I'll let you listen. DP376, and this is exactly what the entity was doing at the ARCO, as I'm documenting the people of the state and the Ontario International Airport engaging in what is the perpetual sex offense, engaging what is harassment and terror. So while that video that I just captured, this is what I'm preparing to upload to X, the entity is targeting by having another plane flying over a senior citizen complex at the location relative to my location. Because remember, when I'm at the OVITT Family Community Library, they're flying over the edge of that same apartment building. They're not flying over the center where the amphitheater is, because I'm not over there. I'm at the entrance, so that's why they stalk in commercial planes over the edge of that apartment complex, which is a senior citizen complex where no airport is hovering over, and the Ontario International Airport is not hovering as a means of its flights that are published on the website over the 280 North Limit Apartments, which is a senior citizen complex. I'm also documenting them doing so while they are monitoring what's going on my device, and the very foolish and unwise pattern is to engage in more of what it is that you observe, because the entity is engaging in what is psychological torture. However, when you're doing it to what is the federal prosecutor who's going to prosecute you based on your pattern, that is the accumulation of evidence proving beyond a reasonable doubt, even to a scientific degree, that you are targeting, and you're targeting in that specific environment. And you're also targeting with the Ontario Police Department, which is an unlawful threat that Ronald Loveridge, Kurt Hagman, Alan D. Wapner, Julia Gu, and Jim Bowman are posing with in real time while I'm documenting them as terrorists that are conspiring my murder by gang stalking me using the airlines that are associated with the Ontario International Airport, and that is federal prison for those corrupt officials and corrupt actors that are employed by the Ontario, corrupt leadership over the Ontario International Airport. That's federal prison. All right, these gang stalking bums that are gang stalking with the Ontario Police, these gang stalking demons at Starbucks kidnapping with the Ontario Police, and these gang stalking cockroaches that are calling themselves the Ontario Board. Guess what? Equal treatment under the law. It's federal prison. And I'm documenting a pattern. While I'm documenting that, what do you hear in the background? What am I capturing on video? The unlawful threat while you're gang stalking by the murderers who call themselves the police department. They're engaged in criminal surveillance, and they commit crimes as an entity that is engaged in criminal surveillance. And Jim Bowman will go to federal prison for what I'm documenting him engaging in specifically as an entity, including while Southwest Airlines is targeting me at the 280 North Limit Apartments, where no pilot will in a federal case and an investigation of how appropriate an appropriate takeoff and landing is conducted, will include hovering over 224 North Euclid Avenue under any circumstances. It's not going to be over the Metro 102 apartments. It's not going to be over the Herradura de Oro. It's not going to be over the Starbucks at East Street in Euclid, over the UNICARE healthcare, over the Lemon Avenue, San Bernardino County Housing Authority off of Lemon. It's not going to be over the Chevron at 506 North Euclid Avenue. It's not going to be heard. It's not going to occur even more west over the Starbucks at 706, like I was stating. It's not going to occur over the Stater Brothers parking lot, the Ontario Village. None of that. It's not going to occur over Woodside, where the plane activity is amplified inside of Tracy Banks' apartment, where I'm documenting a pattern of targeting. And Jim Bowman, Kurt Hagman, Julia Gu, Ronald Loveridge, Alan D. Wapner are engaged in what is threatening my life, while the murderers, who are the Ontario Police, the Nephilim together, are threatening my life while I'm documenting them engaging in the very criminal system, which is federal group stalking, monitoring, criminal surveillance. And you go to prison. You go to federal prison for threatening the life of an American citizen, or taking the life of an American citizen, or kidnapping an American citizen, or engaging in collateral harm such as assault with a deadly weapon of an American citizen that is documenting you for targeting them in furtherance of murdering them. You're going to federal prison for that. This is an entity that's doing so with the mayor and Deborah Parada. Jim Bowman and Alan D. Wapner are on the Ontario City Council. They're gang stalking council members. They're going to be removed from position. This is no coincidence. Alan D. Wapner is associated with the corrupt leadership of the Omnitrends, a gang stalker, also proven to be targeting to a scientific degree. By the way, the entity is engaging in this, and there's not going to be a demon-possessed panel of jury members that are going to circumvent science, that are going to contradict what science dictates, because you're not leaving science, you're not leaving common sense, you're not, in the same way you're not leaving DNA that is relevant out of the court. You're going to be prosecuted, and it's a matter of science, and it's to a scientific degree. That meaning the jury, the jury, a panel of jury, which are going to be demons, is not going to interfere with this prosecution of Ronald Loveridge and Julia Gu and the entity Charles Miwa and the entity that's gang stalking immigrants that are engaging in surveillance in the United States with the American government, torturing and targeting American citizens, and then having the audacity to, on video and via podcast, threatening my life, which is exactly the legal relevance of stalking through a police department that is as illegitimate as the Ontario police at that. You're going to prison. Just want to be clear, everybody paying attention in the United States, you're paying attention to what is going to be federal prison. That's the formula. Stalking with the police, stalking as the police equals federal prison. All routes is federal prison, and that's what the entity is doing. That's how the system is supposed to operate. That's the exact purpose of documenting it, because that's going to end. The entity is doing it now, but you're going to federal prison for it tomorrow. And Jason Fields is going to federal prison for what he relied on in order to defame my character and also accomplish what is murdering me. He's going to federal prison, and so are those that are engaging in the system, targeting with the police who are not protecting you. They're not shutting me up. It's going to put you in prison for threatening my life. And relevant to surveillance, which you are engaging in, it is you that is specifically threatening me while I'm documenting you, and you don't have to be in my face. While I'm documenting you and you're engaged in surveillance, which is proven through the evidence that the airport is, proven through the evidence that the Ontario Town Square is, proven through the evidence that the Ontario Police Department is, you're going to prison. I hope that's clear, because that's where you're going, and that's where this podcast evidence is headed toward, which is a conviction which is proven to a scientific degree that the airport, that the city of Ontario, that the police department, that the people of the state are engaging in this demonic system. And this is the operation of the Nephilim, and it's not intelligent. It just requires what is diligent evidence accumulation showing how the entity is engaged in, well, first of all, what is a pattern of conduct in fact, and also the ongoing pattern of conduct where these are nothing other than cockroaches that don't want to be identified. They don't want to be named. And what do they do when you start dropping names? Stalking by helicopter. What do they do when you start identifying and capturing and uploading evidence? Stalking by helicopter and stalking by police departments. You're going to prison for that. And that police department that puts their hands on the target individual is being disbanded. They're going to federal prison for being under the fake sun in the presence of the target individual that documents it. You're going to prison. The people of the state that's sharing that, I'm documenting that all the time. But that's the entity that is going to prison. This is how you are going to understand in the times that we're in, and the entity that's engaged in this criminal conduct, murdering people and thinking you can just get rid of as many people as possible, that you have all the power and nobody. That's a lie. It's a lie out of the pit of hell. And these demons have been deceived. They're going to sit in cells. And they're going for, just let me be clear, it's not going to be literally a 100% type of ratio. For example, I've been documenting for 7 years, so you're going to prison for 7 years. That's not how that's going to be determined. But I will state this: you're going for at least 7 years. With regard to what is my documenting, ongoing targeting, you're going for much longer than that. The entity is engaged in, again, conspiracy to murder, attempted murder as an entity. This is upon facts of gang stalking. So Jason Fields being a hitman, Tracy Banks soliciting what is murder. She's doing so upon facts of federal group stalking and monitoring. Understand how this is escalated upon terrorism by the state. The government is gang stalking me and is doing so with regard to what is trying to render illegitimate my identity, who I am, so that they can then write off what was a murder committed by them. Tracy Banks' solicitation for murder is the entity. Why? Because the entity that intends on committing murder will have committed murder against someone that they successfully defamed as a drug addict, as a prostitute, and then it will be the target individual's fault regarding whatever happened to them, which the entity will also not solve. This is the entity. You are definitely engaged in that which is upon facts of federal group stalking and monitoring. Jason Isaac Fields is a hitman and acting in furtherance of murder upon gang stalking. That's exactly what he's doing. There's no investigation. Okay, Tracy Banks is soliciting murder as the entity. That's the government that's soliciting murder. In the same way that that's the government that's engaging in sex trafficking, putting me on the internet in the nude, unbeknownst to me. And while you're gang stalking at the same time, and an LAPD is following me to the bank, following me to the DMV, following me on the roads and the highways, the entity is gang stalking the same way. This is what the Ontario Police Department, the City of Ontario, is engaging in. The entity that's gang stalking as the Ontario International Airport is very foolish in doing so, but I've been documenting fools. These are the inferior. They are the Nephilim. They're demons. They're not intelligent. They just have a lot of them, and then they have this illusion of success because of numbers. And no, that means a lot of people are about to get in trouble, serious trouble, like big trouble. Okay, and this is upon, remember, everything is escalated upon facts of federal group stalking and monitoring, meaning it's not the individual that's engaging in what is attempted murder, it's the entity engaging in attempted murder. It's upon terrorism. The government is specifically gang stalking while the entity is seeking to solicit someone to commit a homicide. While you're stalking me and the entity's wanting to falsely depict my character as being one is mentally ill, and then the demise of that understand that that's the government that's engaging in that, and that's exactly how it's going to be prosecuted. The entity's engaging in what is threatening my life while I'm documenting the Ontario Board and the Ontario Executive Team, while the entity is in real time providing evidence of what no pilot will be able to reconcile: the takeoff from the airport and the documentation of targeting me by that airport throughout the City of Ontario. It will be the federal prosecution of the Ontario Air Board, who is engaged in surveillance with the entity that is threatening my life and safety pursuant to the pattern of conduct of gang stalking, because the Nephilim that are gang stalking as corrupt police departments are supposed to silence the targeted individual. They're supposed to intimidate. They're supposed to retaliate. They're supposed to kidnap. They're supposed to defame. And that's not working. They're going to prison. What they're supposed to do is be disbanded and go to federal prison. And that's where the Ontario Police Department are going. And that's what's happening to them. They're still engaging in that conduct, though. And that is serving to prosecute the terrorists of the Ontario International Airport. That's what that's serving. That's why they're still engaged in that foolishness, because they're going to prison. Understand where these officials are going. Understand where these corrupt leaders are going. They're going to prison. And it is not enough for a civil case. The gang stalking pilots, that's federal prison. The entity is going to produce its own identity. Understand how a prosecution is that there's a production, a discovery. Okay? Your business records are literally going to serve to prosecute who it is, what your identity is, because you're going to prison. And it's not just my documentation. The federal government that's targeting me is going to cooperate in providing justice. It's going to be forced to because of my investigation. But for my investigation, the federal government wouldn't be doing that. But even the federal government that has delayed in that, it's going to be relevant to the prosecution. And demons like Ronald Leverage and Alan D. Wapner, your time in federal prison is going to be based on that. You are harming yourself. 7 years of documenting, 7 years, an ongoing investigation, that's a minimum. So you can count on a minimum of 7 years in prison. Just to be clear, but you're doing, the entity engaged in mail fraud, the entity engaged in what is stealing my identity, the entity engaged in what is stealing my identity in order to act like they're me in court, representing themselves as me in court, stealing my identity with regard to taking out credit cards and stuff in my name, loans in my name, engaging in what is stealing my inheritance, engaging in what is maintaining criminal devices fraudulently procured like a conservatorship, which this gang stalking government provided to the entity that's also soliciting my murder, while they're targeting at the same time, after they stole my property through a criminal device like a fake conservatorship and a fake marriage. This is why the entity is gang stalking by police and planes in real time. All of that is directly relevant to what the same entity has committed. Ronald Leverage is directly invested in my murder while he is engaged in targeting me, while that same police department kidnapping me over and over again and criminally defaming. In concert with the demons of the OVITT Family Community Library, you don't come up with malicious and very specific assertions like molesting a child. Where would you come up with that? You could have said anything but that. You could have said that I stole somebody's wallet. You could have said that I smacked somebody in the bathroom. You could have said that I stole somebody's property or something. They said I molested a child. Do you understand why they're getting to those allegations? This is what Tracy Banks and Jason Fields, this is what the entity was in court seeking to establish me as an abuser of children, when actually the entity are the pedophiles. They are engaged in trafficking children. And that's also relevant to the very specific allegations of the gang stalkers of the OVITT Family Community Library, who again are targeting me while I'm showing you the Ontario police stalking me at the ARCO last night, stalking me this morning at the Ontario Town Square. Guess who's stalking, monitoring my vagina in the bathroom? Sean Thrasher, who's going to prison, making assertions that are proven through my podcast. that it didn't happen. But for my documentation, that's exactly what gang members do. They create a false and entirely fake set of facts, and in an environment where they are targeting you and they create the reality. And this is, again, the entity that's going to be prosecuted by that. Sean Thrasher is targeting and that's proven while the Ontario police are targeting me at ARCO, are targeting me at the Ontario Town Square, while the Ontario International Airport is targeting me, so is Sean Thrasher targeting my vagina in the bathroom. And Sean Thrasher committed kidnapping. Sean Thrasher committed many documented acts of obstruction of justice because I'm documenting Sean Thrasher. And those who, again, engage in that, you're going to federal prison. And so are the demons that are a part of the Ontario International Airport that are gang stalking with while I am at the OVITT Family Community Library, while I'm at the Ontario Town Square. Federal prison. This is how you are targeting domestic terrorists. This is how what is the new landscape. Surveillance is underway, and the entities engaging in surveillance to murder people. You're not going to get away with that at all. Surveillance is no longer a secret, and not only that, the way that they target American citizens is also fully exposed, and they cannot engage in targeting anymore, secretly at least. Where you're targeting, it is capable of being identified and proven and prosecuted. And there are very specific penalties for officials, for neighborhoods, for communities that are engaging in targeting American citizens, trying to do away with them, trying to murder them, kidnap them, set them up, frame them. This is acts of terrorism by the government. None of it's private activity, and this is changing with regard to the Constitution, where the people of the state are not even exercising any constitutional rights. This is outside. This is the entity that is the public entity. The people of the state are the public entity because they're engaged in monitoring with the government. You're outside of any constitutional rights. Your house, your work, your speech, your conduct is all state action, all of it. The entities engaged in this, and I just want to be clear, those demons are threatening my life, and that's federal prison for the Ontario board and those on the Ontario executive team, and literally in real time while I document that, and the prosecution of the Ontario International Airport, literally the production, ordinary discovery regarding the demons that are stalking in these planes and helicopters. The entity that's doing so pursuant to surveillance. Surveillance is proving your knowledge, and the specific environment is proving your knowledge, and your specific knowledge is also not relevant at all. The entity that's stalking me by helicopter, guess who's going to prison for it? The one that I'm documenting, because you're acting as an entity. What your co-defendant, your co-conspirator engages in, you're guilty of, and you're going to prison for it. In the same way that the Ontario police, we can go this any other way that you want to legally analyze it, because this is how you apply the law to these facts based on what the government is doing, and you are going to federal prison. Ronald Leveridge, Julia Gu, Alan D. Wapner, Jim Bowman. The entity, Kurt Hagman, the entity that's engaged in what is stalking through a whole airport, targeting me and harassing me, and all I'm doing is clocking it. There's a penalty for you, and it's very specific to you. In the same way that the entity is very specifically targeting me, the prosecution is very specific and detailed to you as well. Okay, and that's federal prison while the entity is stalking with the Ontario police, which is stalking with the OVITT Family Community Library as well, which is stalking with Starbucks as well, which is stalking with Woodside Senior Apartments Tracy Banks as well, which is stalking with Jason Isaac Fields as well. Okay, that's P.O.C. That's the entity that's engaging in what is a U-turn over the Ontario Town Square, where you can hear that plane activity, and the entity is going to be prosecuted with regard to what a pilot will directly serve to prosecute my means as a prosecutor, because no pilot is going to create any sort of audible activity over the Ontario Town Square from 2500 Airport Road. A takeoff is completed in the sky space over that airport, where they are reaching an elevation where it's not going to cause any sort of plane activity like you're hearing throughout the city, where I'm maintaining podcast documentation in order to protect myself and prosecute the government that is stalking me from place to place using planes and helicopters. And they're also doing it in what is speaking to the scientific degree of certainty regarding guilt, and that is the fake sun documentation and the specific environment, the engineer light. It's currently 10:56 a.m. and this is documentation I want to document regarding the entity that is engaging in this because of my documentation that is going on X, and also the documentation is going on X is the entity that is targeting in real time while I am publishing the evidence. Okay, so these demons are gang stalking, engaging in surveillance at the Ontario Town Square. These are demons that are monitoring my vagina. They walk into the library, engaging in surveillance. These are the Nephilim sitting around, engaging in surveillance in plain view. Conspicuous stalking is a federal prosecution for terrorism. And guess what? The documentation is going to be conspicuous as well. The entity engages in criminal summoning when you're documenting them threatening your life. And those are the psychopaths that are going to federal prison. These are the homosexuals monitoring my vagina, stalking and molesting with engineer light. And they're also the demons demons that are engaging in surveillance on behalf of that entity that's stalking with planes and helicopters, that is engaged in what is solicitation of murder, and doing so as an entity that is very much engaged in and interested in keeping me under surveillance. The entity is doing so, again, with impunity. This is an entity that is documented. All they're doing is changing faces, engaging in the same conduct with the same demonic possession, same criminal system, different face, okay? The entity is engaged in this conduct as a business. That's Wells Fargo. That's the Ontario City, the city of Ontario. They're setting up chairs in the Ontario Town Square. Remember Elvia? I was saying her name is Elvira. Her name is Elvia, the non-singing demon that's gang stalking under the 6 p.m. fake sun, which nobody forgot. The entity covering up the fake sun is not changing the criminal conduct that the city of Ontario shares in with mediocre songstresses who use a microphone to gang stalk me at this Ontario Town Square, where that same airport is gang stalking while that entity is engaging in what is the Route 66 show. Criminal conduct, which is what the city of Ontario is engaging in while they're engaged in relevant positioning, while the entity is maintaining plane activity and helicopter activity, doing so with a bunch of demons, psychopaths that are stalking conspicuously at the Ontario Town Square, sitting on the benches, walking all around, walking their dogs, pushing their strollers. They're gang stalking. And those are the same homosexuals that go into the bathroom and are monitoring my vagina. Okay, the entities engage in that conduct, and they are the ones that are then hostile, stalking with the police who fly in circles over me because they're homosexuals, feigning a life of a heterosexual woman while you're stalking another woman and obsessed with another woman's vagina. Okay, that's the mental illness of the psychopaths that are demon possessed. That's the Nephilim. Okay, should be concerned about stalking a treadmill. Should be concerned about your double and triple chins. Should be concerned about your mental well-being because you're under a fake sun, Satan, that you're mentally disturbed while you're stalking somebody that you don't even know. And then you're angry because you're exposed by it. And then you engage in more criminal conduct that I'm going to put you in federal prison with. Stalking me by helicopter is not helping the Ontario board, and it's not helping the demons like Sean Thrasher who are going to federal prison. That kidnapping that he committed throughout 2020 and 2022, I'm documenting that. There's no statute of limitations. You're going to prison. You engaged in kidnapping, you can bet you're going to prison, and the entity is providing evidence against itself all the time. You're engaging in surveillance in the library. You're engaging in surveillance while I'm outside showing you what they're doing inside the library. They're doing the same thing, stalking, sitting in front of a computer. That's all they're doing. They're engaging in this under the fake sun that's still present, as I showed you at the food festival, where the Ontario police is stalking. And the Ontario International Airport is stalking. They're doing this at the Route 66 show, where the Ontario police are stalking, and the Ontario International Airport is stalking, doing so as psychopaths. This is the Nephilim under a fake sun. All right, this is the mentally ill population. This is the entity that commits serial killings, that engage in kidnapping together. That's what Sean Thrasher and the OVITT Family Community Library are engaged in. That's kidnapping committed as an entity, okay? And the entity is, again, psychopathic, very much enraged and angry. You can be as angry as you want. You're going to prison. Okay, the entity that's engaged in the pattern of conduct is doing so with real-time knowledge, and the Ontario board that has real-time knowledge, and the proof of that is the stalking by the commercial planes, the stalking in the specific environment, the stalking in concert with the Ontario police. And I will be clear, I'm going to state, I'm stating the law to you right now, and you can take it in jest if you want. It doesn't matter how you take it, because you're going to prison. You're going to be taking a federal prison sentence. You are engaging in surveillance as a corrupt entity, and you're going to federal prison for engaging in the unprecedented level of psychological torture and harassment and terrorism and furtherance of murder when you're using a whole airport. That's speaking to a very large investment in the demise of an American citizen who is suffering because of your psychopathic appetite, because of your bloodthirsty agenda. And you're going to prison for it. And you're also going to provide to the federal prosecutor, you're going to provide to me who you are. That's how that's going to work. You're literally going to give me your name. That's how it's going to work in court. And you're going to prison. You're going to prison for the Ontario police stalking me and threatening me while I'm documenting it, by the way, in real time while I document you by name, okay? These are psychopaths. These are the homosexuals pacing around with kids while the entity is sounding the trains. Those are the demons that are monitoring my vagina. These are the demons that are a threat to children, by the way, while they're gang stalking with them. They will go into the bathrooms monitoring my vagina. CMPNHIK. In the same way that the Ontario police, they're stalking by helicopter, child. This is what they're doing. It's not separate. These are demons, and they're walking around with minor children that they are a threat to. They have sex with little kids. They sacrifice their own kids while they're engaging in what is abusing them, because that's how the federal law is going to treat it. This is abuse while you're engaging in what is gang stalking via children, which is what the people of the state are doing as a way of life, by the way. And there are also sex offenders engaging in what is monitoring and obsessing over my vagina while they're then stalking another person, which is speaking to a threat to that child as well. That's a mentally ill person that has custody of minor children that they're monitoring another woman with and in concert with, okay? But just want to be clear on that. The entity is engaging in what is this sexual violence inside of the OVITT Family Community Library, where the entity is stalking by helicopter and planes. What do you think these demons holding the hands of little children are doing? They're gang stalking. These are demons. This is the Nephilim. And the fake sun is indeed over me at the OVITT Family Community Library, where you know that it's still present. That's why I walked out at 4 p.m., for example, on Sunday, and that's where the fake sun is still present. That's why I'm showing you the fake sun in the same position at 8 o'clock in the morning that it is at 12:13 p.m., when this homosexual, A. Casada, wearing an Ontario Police Department uniform, is monitoring my vagina while homosexuals pace in and out of that bathroom. And their homosexual violence is based on their stalking someone, which is the conduct of a sex offender, and stalking is also born of obsession. And they're doing that while they're obsessing over me and my vagina in the bathroom for purposes of criminal monitoring. And so is the Ontario Board and the Ontario Executive Team and the Ontario Police Department, who are stalking me at this same location where the sun doesn't go anywhere. You're going to prison gang stalking as the Ontario Board and Ontario Executive Team, and using the Ontario Police Department, who are imps, with regard to proving that you're targeting me. And doing so, that's not a productive means of what is targeting me. You go to prison. In case you did not learn that, they're being disbanded and they're going to federal prison. You threaten a federal prosecutor, you go to federal prison. You interfere with an ongoing federal investigation, you go to federal prison. You think you're going to threaten during an ongoing case, and I'm documenting you by name while surveillance is underway and clear targeting by that airport, you're going to federal prison, and all roads lead to federal prison for those demons sitting on the Ontario Board. Gang stalking me with this third-party license 2706-1T2 under the same fake sun that's still present after 6 p.m., where the entity is, like I'm documenting at the Ontario Route 66 show, a fake sun where a bunch of demons, hundreds if not thousands of them, are under a fake sun, and they're all together obsessing over my vagina together. That's a massive sex offense that the Ontario Board is going to be removed. They're going to be removed for the ongoing terrorism that they're engaging in. License 6XNY, hold on, let me get the sex offender's license plate. License plate 6MNX7489CAG156. Okay, P.O.C. All right, the OVITT Family Community Library and every employee is sharing in what is monitoring, and they're engaged in what is kidnapping on June 16, 2022. Okay, every employee is engaged in what is the gang violence inside of the bathroom, and they're going to be prosecuted for kidnapping that they committed on June 16, 2022. Daisy, Sean Thrasher, and everybody else sharing in criminal summoning, sharing in what is the acts of obstruction of justice while they are monitoring my vagina, and they know that I'm documenting which an American citizen that is subject to conspicuous stalking, which is relevant to psychological torture, and it's going to be conspicuous documentation. And the entity is engaging in that, and Sean Thrasher is already engaged in it. Alan and these demons that are engaged in still working at the OVITT Family Community Library, they're going to prison. All right, and they're watching me unfold my case as I'm on the computers in here publishing my evidence, and they're gang stalking all day long, monitoring my vagina all day long, and that's relevant to their time in federal prison and their mental examinations. This is P.O.C. It is currently 11:04 a.m. The entity that's stalking by helicopter is stalking inside of the OVITT Family Community Library. That's why I have the absurd light activity inside of here. These demons are going to be prosecuted, including, hi, Mickey. Yeah, she's gang stalking. This is P.O.C.
This is documentation of that cough is a demon stalking with activity with simultaneity to my speaking and beginning the recording. And you know that because the fake sun is over the same OVITT Family Community Library that it is at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they're all walking around, sitting, engaging in what is surveillance in a library and engineer light. These are demons. This is the Nephilim engaged in monitoring, and they're monitoring their ongoing impending federal prosecution. The entities engaging in what is monitoring online, so I'm going to show you what they're committing. This is federal stalking, Title 18, with the intent to obstruct justice. So everything that you see online, for example, as I share this folder for the 27th, everything is published in this folder for you to access on my website, okay? So the entity that is engaged in federal stalking under Title 18 is seeking to obstruct justice with knowledge that they're being documented. That's the entity that's engaged in criminal surveillance and also engages in malicious acts like criminal summoning, for which they're going to prison, specifically the demons at the OVITT Family Community Library. And this is pursuant to that. This is documented today, and it's removed from the folder. And this has the effect of when you go into the folder for today, September 27, 2025, you won't see all the beautiful images prosecuting the state of California and the Nephilim, who are going to be labeled as domestic terrorists and prosecuted for the sex offense of gang stalking. All right, these are some of the images that they want removed. Proof of presence, which is going to be on surveillance cameras. My documentation is not the only thing that's going to put the demon possessed where they belong and have them appropriately labeled. This is the entity that's engaging what is stalking, monitoring my phone and doing so, pacing in and out of the pacing in and out of the administrator office door while they're monitoring with noise like the demon coughing in the background. They just all engage in what is monitoring my vagina while I'm in the restroom, engaging in bathroom monitoring. And the entity is engaged in what is removal of evidence from that folder pursuant to what is monitoring, and you're doing so with knowledge that you are being documented. And so I want to capture this. This is another tactic of the intent to obstruct justice while the entity is indeed engaged in monitoring and is keeping evidence against itself under surveillance and is engaged in monitoring with the intent to obstruct justice. And this is relevant to the kidnappers at the OVITT Family Community Library who are going to prison for the kidnappings that I documented. And the one that is going to be published soon is the one that occurred on June 16, 2022, where the entity is still engaging in the criminal pattern of conduct, which is speaking to why they're going to federal prison. They're still gang stalking, they're still monitoring my vagina, and they're still engaging in what is obstruction of justice tactics while engaging in that. And they're doing it as a massive sex offense by the people of the state who are stalking me day and night, inside and outside of this library. Okay, so this is documenting the entity that is removing evidence. This is removing it from your ability to see it in the folder that I publish, which is a criminal act of obstruction of justice. Okay, I publish it into a specific folder. The entity is monitoring online. This is on the Ontario Wi-Fi network. The entity is going to be prosecuted for federal stalking on the venue of the internet on the Ontario Wi-Fi. And you already know that the city of Ontario is fully engaged in surveillance. The police department, the fire department. Hi, would you mind letting me back in the room, please? And engaged in what is that pattern of conduct with the intent to obstruct justice. All right, this is P.O.C. I'm going to capture the evidence and make sure it's all returned back into that drive, but I want to capture this. The entity is engaged in this on a daily basis, removing the evidence from the folder, and that's just removing it from your ability to see it because the sex offenders are embarrassed about being identified, and the federal government is engaging in an investigation while I am publishing my public investigation, and they're already identified. What's also known, thank you, is the fact that they're engaged in obstruction while being investigated for terrorism and furtherance of murder, and you're going to prison for that. This is the P.O.C. This is the entity that's engaged in monitoring on the venue of the internet. Everybody inside, all the demons inside of the library are engaged in what are surveilling me, and they're doing it on the Ontario Wi-Fi network. They're doing it via communication devices. They're doing it in furtherance of murder as an entity that is stalking obsessively everywhere that I go, and where I go from the library back to 537 North Euclid Avenue. That's where the people of the state are maintaining surveillance with that entity that's stalking by planes and helicopters. Okay, this is P.O.C. This is documentation of another obstruction of justice tactic pursuant to surveillance that's underway on my device, and the government doesn't have any warrant or probable cause to engage in that. All right, and you're not going to interfere with the federal case without federal prison. All right, it's currently, again, as you can see, 4:59 p.m. at the OVITT Family Community Library. This is the defendant that's engaged in it. And remember, this is the specific actor within the entity. The OVITT Family Community Library is nothing other than a state actor. This is P.O.C. Still perpetually taking off. This is Ontario Village. This is the same exact elevation and audible activity at the Ontario Town Square, which is east of this location. And it's not a perfect east. The entity is going south as I go south and then proceeding over the property. This is Didi's that are monitoring me inside of the store as well, and they're monitoring right now while the Ontario National Airport is gang stalking. And this is all stalking with light activity. This is all relative positioning. These are demons that are monitoring. Okay, here's a shadow right here, which you can see, and here's another shadow down here. That is the Ontario National Airport engaging in assault with a deadly weapon with the demon possessed that are gang stalking, knowing exactly who I am. This is P.O.C. and it's 8 p.m. at the Ontario Village Shopping Center. This is the entity that's engaging what is stalking at this same Ontario Village Shopping Center. Southwest Airlines flying over the Coin Laundry. Remember, that's on the corner, the tailored end of this village, and engaging what is stalking by being at that location. That's the entity that's gang stalking using commercial planes. That's the entity that's engaged in what is targeting with the intent to obstruct justice, as I documented with the Ontario Police this morning. And that's going to be noted in the prosecution and the removal of that airport. This is P.O.C. It's 8:01 p.m.
That is another plane hovering over the storefront where I'm located, stalking, just like at the Ontario Village Shopping Center. 9:16 p.m. and doing so pursuant to monitoring on my device, which never stops me from documenting it. In fact, it's evidence to you that the Ontario International Airport is a domestic terrorist, which shall be removed, and that the people of the state are domestic terrorists who shall be prosecuted. And they are also engaged in what is gang stalking as the immigrant population, which is the ability to deport all of them at the same time. The entity is engaged in what is and also relevant to obstruction of justice. You want to harass and stalk and terrorize by plane while I engage in documentation. So I'm going to document the people of the state that are sharing in that harassment while they are engaging in the pattern of conduct. License 8CYF412. And by the way, it's 9:16 p.m. License plate. Let's see. Looks like 8XRN106. Molesting. It's a sex offender. License plate 71176F2. Again, that molesting. These are all sex offenders that I'm documenting. License 7SLX923. Again, 7 Samuel Larry Xavier 923. License plate 9UPY197. License 6TXH746. License 6Y94077. License 9UUG918. License 08 Paul Henry 72. License 7 Barry Robert Victor 790. The entity is engaged in gang stalking with minor children. This is what I'm looking at least. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that these are minor children that are engaged in gang stalking. It's very unfortunate and pathetic at the same time. This is captured at 6:06 p.m. and the OVITT Family Community Library, which is the City of Ontario, is engaged in gang stalking with minor children as well, and also calling itself a family community type of property where it's engaged in criminal surveillance and, like I've shown you today, monitoring, which is a sex offense committed in a private space such as a bathroom, where they are invading the privacy of American citizens that have not consented to surveillance, like the demon-possessed people of the state have while they're engaging in surveillance in the bathrooms. All right. This is, again, minor children that are gang stalking with the people of the state, which is captured at 6:06 p.m. The same people of the state that are gang stalking right now. They're monitoring and engaging in criminal monitoring with their children as a way of life. This is the corrupt society. This is the Nephilim that's engaging in this criminal conduct, which is also sexually motivated and predatory and perverted in nature. License 9LVW 883. 22471 Barry 4. G as in George, Daryl, Y as in yogurt 1, GDDY 1. Let's see. License 22471 Barry 4. License 9. Looks like 9. Okay, excuse me, start over. License 9 Nancy Larry Zebra 130. License 7, Mary Henry Uncle 379. Looks like license 9, Larry Uncle Edward 508. 8, Charlie Larry Wendy 324. 7, Xavier Robert Barry 555. Looks like 09420 Yogurt 2. Yeah, I read that one. License 42945 Larry 2. License Edward George 90 Frank 55. That's a paper plate on a Cadillac. License 12781 Zebra 1. 7, Nancy Wendy Larry 509. 9, Larry Isaac Samuel 477. 9, Larry Isaac Samuel 477. 6, Zebra Barry Karen 964. Edward Harry 01 Victor 44. That's a paper plate. License 5, Nancy 0 Zebra 723. License 7555 7 Charlie 2. Oh, I think I have that one already. Yeah, I read that one already. License 8, Robert George Wendy 851. 9, license 9, Jerry Bob Charlie 597. 5, JBC 597. Oh, the entity stalking by helicopter, as you can hear in the background, 922. The entity is documenting itself. That's the entity that's gang stalking with all the people of the state whose license plates I'm documenting. This is the entity that's sharing in a sex offense, monitoring my vagina in the bathroom with the Ontario Police Department, who you can hear stalking with helicopter. That entity, Mike Lorenz, is monitoring my vagina in the bathroom. They're being disbanded. This goes without saying. They are stalking by helicopter at 9:22 p.m. 8, David Apple 153. License Edward 22 Zebra 55. License Charlie Xavier 32 Henry 47. That's a paper plate. License 5, Mary Uncle 809. License 8, Nancy Robert Kelly 266. License 9, Victor Barry Jerry 117. Again, 9VBJ 117. License 91282 W3. License 9LTS 126. 9 Larry Thomas Samuel 126. Molesting, every single last one of them. These are sex offenders sharing in what is the sexual assault and battery as an entity. 5 Paul Larry Barry 570. License 8 Xavier Robert Wendy 709. American Medical Response engaging in what is criminal summoning at 6:42 p.m. Captured in images and would be on the traffic cameras. Gang stalking, traveling in the direction south on Euclid Avenue. Engaging in criminal summoning, where the fake sun is setting is where the entity is engaged in what is monitoring. Just like the Ontario Police is gang stalking right now, American Medical Response is gang stalking at 6:42 p.m., engaging in the criminal use of an emergency vehicle to maintain surveillance of an American citizen in furtherance of murder. And American Medical Response is going to be prosecuted. That's gang stalking and facilitation of gang stalking. License plate 9 Jerry Daniel Nancy 445. License 8 Robert Samuel Apple 718. License 5 Thomas Barry Apple 645. Oops. Okay. Well, I'll get that. Here's the entity flying over my head, just like this morning, where the Ontario International Airport was being documented. Robert Loveridge, Julia Gu, Alan D. Wapner, Jim Bowman, Ronald Loveridge. Those are the demons threatening my life while the entity is stalking with the Ontario Police, and they're threatening my life again while I'm documenting the people of the state by license plate, which will be on my podcast at 9:25 p.m. Those are the demons on the Ontario board, the Ontario Airport Board, who are going to federal prison for threatening my life, as is the pattern of the demons that are being disbanded, stalking, engaging in criminal surveillance, and failing at protecting gang stalkers but incriminating them. Because those on the Ontario Airport Board are going to prison for this very federal offense. This is P.O.C. and those demons, the Nephilim, are being prosecuted for gang stalking. The entire immigrant population is subject to deportation. Understand what it means when the government's engaging in stalking by planes, by helicopters, by entire departments. It's speaking to a whole population that's sharing in that criminal activity. And this is demonic. It's relevant to domestic terrorism, and it's relevant to criminal activity, which the entity is engaging in with real time as you enforce your rights, such as documenting it. And this is what the airport board committed this morning on video. They engage in what is threatening you through the gang stalkers of the Ontario Police, and you're going to federal prison for it. This is P.O.C. Every single last one of them are individually and collectively as an entity sharing in criminal surveillance, and they're threatening as an entity as well, and they're going to be prosecuted for that. The immigrants are being deported. That's where we're going to start. This is P.O.C. It's currently 9:26 p.m. That's the Ontario Police that are engaged in criminal surveillance, not law enforcement. And because of that fact, they're going to be disbanded. This is P.O.C. All right, capturing that entity that's engaging in that documented pattern, just like I'm referring to in my documentation. As you already witnessed, what I'm doing on my podcast with regard to documentation is what the entity is keeping under surveillance, and the documented pattern of threatening my life and stalking me in a helicopter is an overused and expired method of what is a threat that the people of the state and the entity that's being documented is going to federal prison for. And that agency is being disbanded on top of that. I just want to be clear. It is currently 9:27 p.m. This is the entity that is again engaging in what is exposing itself, and this is exposing what is severe mental illness that is a threat to national security. It's a threat to national security that the Ontario International Airport remain. It's going to be removed. It's a threat to national security that the Ontario Police Department remain in existence, and it's going to be disbanded. And the kidnappers that I have engaged in documenting while they are seek to obstruct justice, threatening my life and safety, kidnapping, and criminally defaming me, because that's the only means whereby they were exercising authority under the law that they don't have while they're engaged in surveillance, and criminally defaming me as though I am, one, a criminal, and number two, in violation of any law, number three, that I am also mentally incapacitated in any way whatsoever, which is a specific tactic that the Ontario Police Department that is engaged in simultaneously in psychological torture. That's why they're going to federal prison as kidnappers. They're also going to be disbanded as a corrupt agency, and they provide a wealth of evidence as to why the people of the state and every third-party state actor that I'm documenting, that is, again, the cause for the entity targeting me by helicopter, as though you're going to drop bombs on me or start shooting at me as though I'm doing something wrong, which is a documented tactic. You're going to prison for that. That's, again, Ronald Loveridge, Julia Gu, the entity that's gang stalking by commercial planes as the airport board and the airport executive team. They are threatening my life this morning while the entity engaged in the exact same documented tactic. While I'm engaged in what? Documenting the entity that is stalking me. And the entity is engaging in what is stalking then by pulling out the helicopters. You want to pull out the helicopters, you're going to prison. Okay? The entity is engaging in this while molesting me, the perpetual sex offense, ongoing assault and battery as an entity. This is unprecedented terrorism and psychological torture that the ordinary targeted individual is not suited to endure. I am exposing it because these demons, this entity, the Nephilim, is going to be put on the map for being sacrificed. They sacrifice themselves, and they sacrifice every level of government in Ontario. They sacrifice what is their freedom, and they sacrifice their reputation, their careers, whatever it is that they abused in order to target me. That's exactly what they sacrifice. And this is the entity that's losing the police department, the fire department, the airport. This is the entity that's losing its position in office. There's no more gang stalking mayor and gang stalking mayor pro tem and gang stalking treasurer, etc. This gang stalking city council is being removed from position. Okay, and they're being documented while the entity is stalking me by a police department and an airport and a fire department and demons stalking in ambulances. And it's also entirely ridiculous and absurdly psychopathic. It's embarrassing, and this is the Nephilim that are the living dead. And they're also obsessed with me. That's why they're stalking me at a bus stop. That's why they're staying outside to stalk me where I'm at. That's why they engage in stalking me in bathrooms. That's why they spend so much money and resources on stalking me using helicopters. Mike Lorenz is obsessed with my vagina. He's not really consumed with his wife. He's consumed with my vagina. No exaggeration. He's a demon, and so is whoever he's with. They're demons. This is an entire entity full of the Nephilim. Whatever he's married to, whatever he gave birth to, whatever his offspring are, they're a bunch of demons. Okay? The entire city, the entire state, these are dead people, and I'm prosecuting them. And that's why they spend millions of dollars on gang stalking me, using planes and helicopters, using your business, using everything that you have, including your home, including being outside to stalk the target individual that's not even in a shelter. I'm outside, and this is where they're keeping me under surveillance. This is where they're stalking me. That's how vital I am to Mike Lorenz. Don't be deceived. It's not what you think it is just because somebody wears a wedding ring. Clearly, Mike Lorenz is troubled, okay? Because you're talking about keeping my vagina under surveillance, and then you're supposedly in some sort of happy life. No, you're not. First of all, you're a demon. Second, I know you're miserable. Second of all, you're keeping me under surveillance, gang stalking me. You don't like yourself. You don't like your life. And neither it's the same with your spouse, whatever that is that you're with, whatever it is that you're with, they're demons together targeting me and using all the resources of a police department. You're consumed with me. You are obsessively consumed with me. And because of that, you're being removed from law enforcement because it's a crime. It's a crime that you call yourself a police officer or a police chief, and you are no such thing. You're an enemy of the United States. That's what you are. And I'm removing that mask publicly, and you're being stripped of that position. And that entire agency is being removed altogether. And the gang stalking kidnappers, they're all going to federal prison. All right? This is P.O.C. This is the entity engaging in that while I'm documenting them. And this is an entity that's doing so with the intent to obstruct justice, and that is a no-no. But the entity continuously engages in that, and so you're going to witness what is the open prosecution of those un-American offenses, un-American offenses of those acts of terrorism in the United States, while the United States government is engaging in what is betrayal of its own country, betrayal of the American principles that govern us, while domestic terrorists are exposed as masquerading as law enforcement agencies, masquerading as American citizens, and they are no such thing. License 5TBA645 is where we're at. We're going to continue. License plate 36129Y3. License 9 Nancy Karen Robert 652. And all of these people that say all these license plates that I'm documenting, that's incriminating each and every one of them, because they're gang stalking with this agency that threatens my life and safety and my well-being and psychologically tortures me as I enforce my rights against what are absolutely domestic terrorists and demons that are acting in furtherance of murdering me. That's why the entity is engaging in that documented pattern. And demons that are sitting on the airport board and the Ontario executive team, you're facing federal prison for that. You're not going to be treated any differently under the law with regard to what is a domestic terrorist, foreign or domestic. That's what the law says. There's no difference. You are equally despised in the United States, where you hate this country and you target American citizens and terrorize them. You're going to be treated in that manner as the enemy you are under the law. Okay, it is license 9 Larry Queen Edward 266. That's 9LQE 266. Let me make sure that's a Q. Yeah. License 6 Henry Edward 0773, I believe. 7 Jerry Larry 988. 8 Henry Uncle Larry 246. 6 Zebra Edward Nancy 961. 8 Thomas Xavier Henry 430. 9 Thomas Wendy Samuel 517. 8 Paul David Samuel 472. 9 George Thomas Paul 028. 8 Paul Wendy Charlie 560. 8 Henry Mary Zebra 517. 8 Paul Charlie Zebra 162, in case I didn't read that one already. 8 Xavier 303. That's 8XXX 303. License 6 Wendy Xavier Samuel 565. 9 Robert Samuel Robert 643.
9
License 9 UIK 292. That's 9 Uncle Igloo Karen 292. Molesting. License 9 Paul Thomas Charlie 931. License 9 George Larry George 797. License 6 Uncle Edward Larry 919. 5 Xavier Larry Robert 093. 6 Jerry Nancy Nancy 698. 5 Paul Frank Robert 629.
Molesting on behalf of an entity, gang stalking with the Ontario Plaza Apartments. This is a sex offender. License plate. I'm going to document the entire apartment complex as well. BSSWTCH, getting a lot of people in trouble. She's a sex offender. It's a sex offender. It's a demon. And it is monitoring and molesting and lurking in the apartment complex behind a locked gate while engaging in a sex offense where this demon presupposes that I can't get to them. This is license 9CNV133. This is the sex offense committed by the entity, Ontario Village Shopping Center gang stalking. I document them under the fake sun during the day with the same Ontario International Airport, the City of Ontario, and these welfare collecting demons that do not ever, they want to be outside because that's where they're going to be after, once you're documented and you're prosecuted, you will never receive government assistance again, and it's going on your criminal record. That's how you're going to be removed from being able to ever receive government benefits for terrorism, and that's if you're not deported, okay? License plate. 6ENS 251. P.O.C. This is the neighborhood molesting while they're gang stalking. That's the city molesting. That's Unity doing so, and that's looks like a Latino male. Just again, another random sex offender in the city of Ontario, gang stalking and furtherance of murder, committing the sexual assault and battery with engineer light while keeping a woman under surveillance, and stalking, following from place to place as an entity. It's 8:31 p.m. This is P.O.C.
Alrighty, that is video documentation. I'm including it on my podcast. License plate 7NOA. That's 7 Nancy 0 Apple 827. License
Ontario International Airport was being documented. Robert Loveridge.
9 TIV. Oh, I can't really see the rest of that one.
D. WAPNER.
Oops. Alrighty, and it's currently 9:37 p.m. You can scratch that last one. I can see the whole license plate. The entity engaging in molestation. So that's an entity engaging in what is a sex offense, and they try to speed off and run. The entity is engaging in what is criminal conduct as an entity. The entity, let me be clear, the entity, I don't have to document every immigrant in the city of Ontario for them to be deported. I don't have to document every sex offender in the city of Ontario for them to be prosecuted. The entity is engaging in acting as one. That's every business. That's every gang stalking household. That's the entity that's acting as an entire city, for example, as I've already established and covered the whole city, while the whole city keeps a fake sun over me and stalks me in that environment, which is a supernatural phenomenon, proving to a scientific degree that everybody in the city is gang stalking, and also doing so while the government is engaged in targeting, which has been established for years. The second half of my documentation included prosecuting the population, who are the demon-possessed people of the state. The government has been proven to be targeting for years, and that's why I can go to any city and the entity is sharing in that pattern of conduct, acting directly. Where the government is gang stalking, the people of the state are thereby prosecuted. Everybody in that city is engaged in that pattern of conduct in that specific environment, which is providing a degree of certainty that is even to the satisfaction of what science provides with regard to an accurate conclusion, meaning unmistakable, meaning something that cannot be confused or something that would be subject to any sort of exception based on what the entity is doing, how foolish it is, and also the supernatural feature of the system is providing a level of certainty that is even beyond a reasonable doubt, okay? It is currently 9:39 p.m. This is an entity engaged in a sex offense in real time, gang stalking with the Ontario Police Department in real time, acting as a population with impunity, and it's relevant to when they're prosecuted regarding damages, it's relevant to when they're prosecuted and the entity's being deported, it's relevant when they're prosecuted and they're sentenced to time in federal prison. It's relevant to all of the above. This is a population that is acting with impunity and are aware. Remember the nature of the crime. They're not just engaged in gang stalking. They're engaged in gang stalking the prosecutor, the person that is keeping it documented, and they're aware of the documentation based on the nature of the crime of surveillance. They know everything that's being documented, and it is noted, relevant to that prosecution, that they continuously engaged in it. In fact, they engaged in more of it, challenging the federal case against them, which is very foolish, and that's relevant to time, it's relevant to damages, it's relevant to charges, it's relevant to the treatment of that entity under the federal law, which is going to surround the Nephilim, which pose a threat in this country. All right, it is currently 9:40 p.m. This is P.O.C. All right, stalking with the Ontario International Airport, license 8F32831. Those appear to be prospects for deportation as well. The entity is gang stalking with the Ontario International Airport, and this is the entity that is stalking at the bus stop. The demons want to breathe on me. They want to be next to me just like they are in the bathroom. So you have this demon stalking at the bus stop, engaging what is gang stalking, and what you'll see in the image captured at 8:59 p.m. where, again, Alan D. Wapner and Kurt Hagman and Julia Gu and Ronald Loveridge are engaged in what are stalking me and threatening me and my life and safety while keeping me under surveillance by stalking with commercial planes that are following me throughout the city of Ontario, hovering over 537 North Euclid Avenue, where the entity that is the Ontario International Airport and this African-American demon that's engaging in what is gang stalking at a bus stop, because this is how close the entity, the demons, want to be next to me. This is how badly they want to share the space that I'm in. That's why the entity is also following me around, stalking me using commercial planes. Remember, they're doing that over the Ontario Village Shopping Center, the same elevation, the same audible activity, stalking me where I'm located in the city. Again, I'm east of where I'm located, where they are stalking over that Ontario Village Shopping Center, and they are stalking with a demon like I captured at 5 o'clock in the morning, the demons that want to be next to me in an unconscious state, that want to touch me and engage in what are molesting my body with engineered light. This is sexual assault and battery committed by Ronald Loveridge, committed by Julia Gu, committed by Alan D. Wapner, the entity that is stalking by being next to me as an entity at the bus stop, and engineered light, where the sex offenders want to sit next to me while they're molesting with light and stalk me with planes. All of this are the demons that are gang stalking together, and that license plate represents an entity that is, again, relevant with regard to deportation, as are all of the people of the state, especially everybody in Ontario, California, based on the heavy documentation of this gang stalking city. License 8EFW214. Stalking in the path, engaging in surveillance on the side of the street. This is license plate. Aiming light, these are demons. License 7YXV739, 7HSG247. Those are demons molesting with light, stalking with planes, and stalking by being next to me at the bus stop. There's no bus coming. Okay, the entity is engaged. The entity has the fake sun rising and setting. All they want to be next to me in the bathroom. They want to be next to my vagina when it's exposed. They want to sit next to me and molest me while they are stalking where I'm at and everywhere that I'm going. These are the demon possessed that are going to be prosecuted for the conspiracy to commit murder. This is how obsessed they are with me. License plate 9KRN690, sex offenders. They're sharing in what is the sexual assault and battery as an entity, and they're doing so as sex offenders that like to engage in also touching me. This is where their obsession also is engaging in what is the violation of my person, which I'm going to prosecute each and every one of them in the shoes of the government for. They're engaging in what is sexual assault and battery, touching me while demons are stalking in the bus stop because they want to be next to me. They're engaging in what is the sexual assault and battery as an entity, removing my covering so that they can stare at me while I'm sleeping, while they molest me with light that's not even naturally happening, and while they want to look at me while they're stalking me with planes and helicopters. Okay, these are the demons that are stalking. License plate. This is the entity. Every department in Ontario is being shut down. The police, the fire department. 70DR791 is gang stalking as an entity on behalf of those corrupt departments that are obsessively stalking. This is the Nephilim. All right, and their mental illness, their sexual perversion, their criminal activity, while they are engaging in what is the system of surveillance that you're aware of, is what is speaking to a comprehensive prosecution. License plate 8TCJ341, and this is what's sitting next to me at the bus stop, waiting for me to be there, tracking my steps, doing so with the engineered light. This is, again, a stalker that wants to be next to me, wants to listen to me breathe, wants to watch me blink. Those are the demons that are monitoring. 094652, I believe, or S52, substantially similar, but I can't really see that, so you can scratch that license plate. It's currently 9:03 p.m. These are demons that are very much indeed obsessed. And that is already proven. Nobody is under any sort of delusion except for the demon-possessed, where the world knows that the demon-possessed are real. I've proven that, and I've also proven their obsession with me. And the entire city of Ontario is full of them, and they're going to be prosecuted for stalking me and conspiring my murder. License 8X8M455, license 9GAZ964, license 6XWY104. They're stalking me by sitting next to me, stalking at the bus stop. This is how obsessed they are. And you can also witness their obsession with the engineer light. You can also witness their obsession by the fake sun, okay? You can witness their obsession by the stalking with planes. This is all evidence to you who are witnessing the sacrifice of the demon-possessed of the Nephilim while their obsession is no longer hidden. Okay, they wanted to falsely depict me as being a mentally ill basket case when actually I'm the one whose vagina they're all obsessed with. I'm the one that they're obsessed with. The demon-possessed females are obsessed with my vagina. They're homosexuals. And they're gang-stalking boyfriends, spouses, whatever they are, live-in, shack-up-ees and shack-uppers. They're all obsessed with my vagina. They're all stalking me. And they're all demons. License plate 9PKG682, or 684, excuse me. This is an entity that goes to that extent to keep me under surveillance. That's how obsessed they are with me. Mike Lorenz, acting like he's a happily married man. No, he's not. He's obsessed with my vagina. He's a psychopath. He's mentally ill. He is the Nephilim, and he is obsessed with my vagina between my legs while he wants you to think that he's happily married with kids. License plate. He's a demon. License 8TPA087, and that's the truth. That's the entity stalking me by helicopter day and night because he's obsessed with my vagina. EVALSTN, another demon stalking, and this is what's stalking at the bus stop. Following me everywhere I go, on the edge of its seat, with every word that I utter. Okay, and then triggered, the demons that are obsessed with me are then triggered by the truth that I speak about their obsession, because I certainly am not stalking them. I certainly am not concerned about their nasty infected genitalia that they penetrate children with, that they are engaged in what is masturbating with while they watch children. These are pedophiles and serial killers. These are the demon possessed that are obsessed with me, and they are obsessed with the one that's also prosecuting and exposing them. Making sure you're aware of all of their character flaws, all of them. License plate 9RPY543, and it's beyond a character flaw. Meaning it's not just selfishness, it's pedophilia. License plate 9TJP106, I believe. P.O.C. These are psychopaths. That's amplified audible activity and engineer light. That's a demon that's obsessed with my vagina. That's pathetic. It's not even about the stupid murder. That demon is stalking me. It's pathetic. License plate EG4780. I think I'm missing a character on that. You can scratch that. That was a paper plate. It's pathetic. This is the entity that's sitting at the bus stop wanting to. This is how desperate they want to be next to me. The entity is going to be prosecuted. The entire city of Ontario is going to be thoroughly prosecuted. The entity is not going where I'm going away, and they're not going with me. They're going to prison. They're going to mental asylums. They're going to be put out of office. They're going to be prosecuted with regard to making sure the rest of the nation knows the threat that they pose to other people, to the American public. That's what's going to happen to the demon-possessed, especially these in Ontario that I'm documenting, engaging in the perpetual sex offense. Their obsession is something that they're going to get mental assistance with. Regular mental examinations, public information regarding the mental illness that plagues the demon-possessed in the state of California. It is currently 9:07 p.m. CHEVRON, Starbucks, ARCO, that is buckets, crab buckets that are across the street, El Pescado, the entity that's engaged in gang stalking, relevant positioning. The people of the state are gang stalking at these establishments. They're doing so as an entity. And one of these demons are engaging in surveillance with them by stalking me in the path, by sitting right next to me where the demons, all of them want to be. License plate. And they all are. You represent an entity. License NEGBO. License another gang stalking family. License plate 6F18244. Him and his homosexual female are both stalking me together. That's how sick the mentally ill are, the Nephilim are. Those are demons. When you and your spouse are obsessed with my vagina, you and your spouse, you're significant, supposedly significant. I'm the significant one. I'm the one that they're both stalking and monitoring. I'm the one that they're obsessed with. That's the reality of the demon-possessed. This is a whole fake reality. They're dead. These are dead people. And I'm prosecuting these dead people. Putting them on the map, because you need to know the demon-possessed are, they're here. They're called the Nephilim. They're here. And they're dead. License plate. 6 MID 339. License plate. 8XXR 312. License plates. 9KWH. I can't even see the rest of that one. And it's 9:08 p.m. I took images. This third party that's engaging in what is the pattern of conduct, this third party is doing so as a state actor. None of these are private citizens. This is the entity that is stalking me, going to the extent to stalk me at a bus stop, because that's what you're doing. The entity is engaged in surveillance everywhere and at all times, and you're going to the extent to be next to me at a bus stop. That's how obsessed the demon-possessed are. But again, they're engaging in what is stalking via traffic. They want to be outside stalking me. License plate. 9NBB034. That's how obsessed with me the Nephilim are. And that's how you know that they're demons as well, because of the extent to which the entity is keeping me under surveillance. That's the evidence to you that also that they're demons. Aside from the fake sun, aside from the amplified audible activity, aside from the engineer light, this is how you know that they're demons as well. The extent to which I have shown you the pattern of conduct is underway, these are demons. And that level of obsession, that fixation, that addiction, that delusion with regard to pursuing me and following me, and that sexual obsession with me, that's the evidence to you that also that they are demons. License plate. 5XBS. Hold on. 5XBS 719. That's another homosexual. Communication device in hand while she's crossing path, gang stalking me. The entity is engaged in what is ongoing obsessive monitoring and doing so as an entire entity. And this is all state action. And this is what an entity does to American citizens that you see on the internet, claiming that they died for some mysterious reason. A lot of times it's witchcraft. Young, healthy people, young, healthy, successful, beautiful people, talented people often, they've been sacrificed by the demon-possessed that want to be them. Okay, they're engaging in the pattern of conduct. They've been targeted, and you just see an article on the news about an unfortunate demise that seemed way too soon with regard to what is also a mysterious death or mysterious disappearance. This is very often the product of what are the demon-possessed, who are the Nephilim, who are here, and they target American citizens. And I represent what is a failed experiment, and also a failed sacrifice. Okay, and I'm exposing the government's ongoing unlawful and inhumane experimentation, and I'm also exposing the fact that those engaging in it, they are the Nephilim. They're the demon-possessed. That scripture thinks of. They're demons. License 9ULH 369. License plate 9NLM 335. License 8ZBL 793. License 7CIC 135. License 7R XX 280, a 7RKX 280, excuse me. It is currently, by the way, 9:11 p.m. The entity that's engaging in what is gang stalking by a government through a public entity like the city of Ontario, like the state of California is, you need to understand the implications. That is the evidence against every gang stalking immigrant, because the government is using such extraordinary and substantial means regarding massive monitoring with a people. That people includes those that are going to be deported for terrorism, for domestic terrorism. And as the entity engages in gang stalking me through the government, that is it is axiomatic that the immigrants in that state are going to be deported, just so you know that how federal law works. And it is a basis of deportation, and this is domestic terrorism, and it is a basis for the federal government to deport everyone. If you are looking for a reason to get rid of people, even for an improper cause that you might be hiding in your mind, the federal government has a legitimate cause, and it's domestic terrorism. You don't have to be a bigot to deport everybody in the state of California that's an immigrant, because they're engaging in terrorism. License plate 7MPG374. EG88085, that's a paper plate. Every single last one of them, and that's why the government is engaged in terrorism, because the entire population is engaging in that. And I am a survivor, so that you will know the truth of that. And the entity provides evidence against the population by gang stalking as a government body. That's because you're stalking through everyone, everywhere, at all times. That's why you're using the whole police department and the fire department. And that's why you're gang stalking as every business is engaging in it. That's why you're maintaining a fake sun through any and every neighborhood at all times. Because it includes the immigrants, by the way. That you can classify, you can categorize, you can round up a whole class of people. Those under that classification, you're out of here. Just want to be clear. While you want to go out of your way and stalk at a bus stop and go out of your way to stalk in the bathroom, while you want to follow and engage in what is, well, this is essentially follow the leader, and the leader is leading you to deportation. The leader is leading you to federal prison and mental asylums, all right? Prosecution for terrorism. This is P.O.C. It's currently 9:13 p.m. All right, I just want to be clear on that. This is a prosecution that's serving to handle a lot of criminal activity amongst a population at one time, and that's relevant to the size of the crime as well. All right, and the size of the pool of defendants. It's the whole population. License plate 7YYL417. P.O.C. All right, I'm going to document ARCO at 434 North Euclid Avenue, Chevron at 506 North Euclid Avenue, Starbucks at 507 North Euclid Avenue, the UNICARE Community Health Center, the Buckets and Crab, Crawfish, El Pescador, the entire plaza, where the Pizza Hut at 715 North Euclid Avenue, the W.S.S. shoe store. This is the plaza that is adjacent to the Woodside Senior Apartments that I'm documenting, the fake sunset. That entire plaza, the entity that is gang stalking at 537 North Euclid Avenue is where I'm located. This is an entity that's sharing in a sex offense I'm documenting, engaging in terrorism with the City of Ontario, and that the sexual assault and battery committed as an entity where businesses are going to be prosecuted as sex offenders. They're going to be prosecuted criminally and civilly as they are engaging in terrorism, and it is not limited when you are claiming that your office was closed and you weren't there. The entity is engaged in using of your property, which is relevant to surveillance at all places and at all times. And when you're in your office, when you're in your establishment, you are gang stalking, and you're going to be liable for the sex offense that is underway while you are in relevant position as an establishment, as a person, as an entity, meaning anybody there is going to prosecute you. And I just want to document this is an entity that's engaging in that sex offense. Also, this fake church, Bethel Congregation, engaging in that sex offense, engaging in terrorism with the entity. This entity that's engaging in what is gang stalking, what is this, Trinity Ministries? Oh, excuse me, Truth and Love Family Ministries. They're engaging in the sex offense. The assault and battery as an entity, the terrorism by the entity using planes and helicopters, the entities engaging in obstruction of justice, and the entities that's engaging in what is federal stalking, the underlying crime of surveillance. They're sharing in that, and the entities engaging in what is a sex offense while they are maintaining surveillance on the roads and the highways. And that is, again, shared by the establishments. And that's just giving a sample of where I'm located. The entire city is going to be prosecuted. This is the prosecution of the state of California. This is P.O.C. Just want to be clear on that. The entities engaging in what is ongoing molestation. The demon-possessed that are gang stalking me are obsessed with touching me as well. All right? And they're going to be prosecuted as sex offenders engaging in a perpetual sex offense, both as businesses representing the people of the state, and also I'm going to prosecute the government that is acting through the people of the state, and it's going under, for example, a third party's name. You're going to be prosecuted. It's going on your criminal record, but it's going on as a sex offense committed by a public entity, and you are part of that public entity. That criminal record, that sex offense is going on under your government name. It is currently, again, 9:43 p.m. This is P.O.C.